Food. Synonyms: aliment, feed, nourishment, pabulum, sustenance, diet, fodder, nutriment, provender, viands, fare, forage, nutrition, regimen, victuals. Food is, in the popular sense, whatever one eats in contradistinction to what one drinks. Thus, we speak of food and drink, of wholesome, unwholesome, or indigestible food, but in a more scientific sense whatever, when taken into the digestive organs, serves to build up structure or supply waste may be termed food. The word is extended to plants to signify whatever taken in any way into the organism serves similar purposes. Thus, we speak of liquid food, plant food, etc. In this wider sense, food is closely synonymous with nutriment, nourishment, and sustenance. Diet refers to the quantity and quality of food habitually taken, with reference to preservation of health. Victuals is a plain, homely word for whatever may be eaten. We speak of choice viands, cold victuals. Nourishment and sustenance apply to whatever can be introduced into the system as a means of sustaining life. We say of a convalescent, he is taking nourishment. Nutriment and nutrition have more of scientific reference to the vitalizing principles of various foods. Thus, wheat is said to contain a great amount of nutriment. Regimen considers food as taken by strict rule, but applies more widely to the whole ordering of life. Fare is a general word for all table supplies, good or bad, as sumptuous fare, wretched fare. Feed, fodder, and provender are used only of the food of the lower animals, feed denoting anything consumed, but more commonly grain, fodder denoting hay, cornstalks, or the like, sometimes called long feed. Provender is dry feed, whether grain or hay, straw, etc. Forage denotes any kind of food suitable for horses and cattle, primarily as obtained by a military force in scouring the country, especially an enemy's country. Start of a new word. Formidable. Synonyms: dangerous, redoubt, terrible, tremendous. That which is formidable is worthy of fear if encountered or opposed, as a formidable array of troops, or of evidence. Formidable is a word of more dignity than dangerous, and suggests more calm and collected power than terrible. Formidable is less overwhelming than tremendous. A loaded gun is dangerous, a park of artillery is formidable, a charge of cavalry is terrible, the full shock of great armies is tremendous. A dangerous man is likely to do mischief, and needs watching. A formidable man may not be dangerous if not attacked. An enraged maniac is terrible. The force of ocean waves in a storm, and the silent pressure in the ocean depths, are tremendous. Antonyms: contemptible, feeble, harmless, helpless, powerless, weak. Despicable. Prepositions: formidable by or in numbers, in strength, formidable to the enemy. Start of a new word. Fortification. Synonyms: castle, citadel, fastness, fort, fortress, stronghold. Fortification is the general word for any artificial defensive work. A fortress is a fortification of a special size and strength. A fortress is regarded as permanent, and is ordinarily an independent work. A fort or fortification may be temporary. A fortification may be but part of a defensive system. We speak of the fortifications of a city. A citadel is a fortification within a city, or the fortified inner part of a city or fortress, within which a garrison may be placed to overawe the citizens, or to which the defenders may retire if the outer works are captured. The medieval castle was the fortified residence of a king or baron. Fort is the common military term for a detached fortified building or enclosure of moderate size occupied or designed to be occupied by troops. The fortifications of a modern city usually consist of a chain of forts. Any defensible place, whether made so by nature or by art, is a fastness or stronghold. Start of a new word. Fortitude. Synonyms: courage, endurance, heroism, resolution. Fortitude, fortis, strong, is the strength or firmness of mind or soul to endure pain or adversity patiently and determinately. Fortitude has been defined as passive courage, which is a good definition, but not complete. Fortitude might be termed still courage, or enduring courage. It is that quality which is able not merely to endure pain or trial, but steadily to confront dangers that cannot be actively opposed, or against which one has no adequate defense. It takes courage to charge a battery, fortitude to stand still under an enemy's fire. Resolution is of the mind, endurance is partly physical, it requires resolution to resist temptation, endurance to resist hunger and cold. Compare brave, patience. Start of a new word. Fortunate. Synonyms: favored, lucky, prospered, prosperous, successful. Happy: a man is successful in any case if he achieves or gains what he seeks. He is known as a successful man if he has achieved or gained worthy objects of endeavor. He is fortunate or lucky if advantages have come to him without or beyond his direct planning or achieving. Lucky is the more common and colloquial, fortunate the more elegant word. Fortunate is more naturally applied to the graver matters, as we speak of the fortunate, rather than the lucky, issue of a great battle. Lucky more strongly emphasizes the element of chance, as when we speak of a lucky hit, a lucky guess, or of one as born under a lucky star. Favored is used in a religious sense, implying that one is the object of divine favor. Happy, in this connection, signifies possessed of the means of happiness. One is said to be happy or prosperous whether his prosperity be the result of fortune or of achievement. Prospered rather denotes the action of a superintending providence. Antonyms: broken, fallen, miserable, unhappy, woeful, crushed, ill-starred, unfortunate, unlucky, wretched. Start of a new word. Fraud. Synonyms: artifice, deceit, duplicity, swindle, treason, cheat, deception, imposition, swindling, trick. Cheating, dishonesty, imposture, treachery. A fraud is an act of deliberate deception with the design of securing something by taking unfair advantage of another. A deceit or deception may be designed merely to gain some end of one's own, with no intent of harming another. An imposition, to take some small advantage of another, or simply to make another ridiculous. An imposture is designed to obtain money, credit, or position to which one is not entitled, and may be practiced by a street beggar or by the pretender to a throne. All action that is not honest is dishonesty, but the term dishonesty is generally applied in business, politics, etc., to deceitful practices which are not directly criminal. Fraud includes deceit, but deceit may not reach the gravity of fraud. A cheat is of the nature of fraud, but of a petty sort. A swindle is more serious than a cheat, involving larger values and more flagrant dishonesty. Fraud is commonly actionable at law. Cheating and swindling are for the most part out of the reach of legal proceedings. Treachery is chiefly used of dishonesty in matters of friendship, social relations, government, or war. Treachery may be more harmful than fraud, but is not so gross, and is not ordinarily open to legal redress. Treason is a specific form of treachery of a subject to the government to which he owes allegiance, and is definable and punishable at law. Compare artifice, deception. Antonyms: fairness, good faith, honesty, integrity, truth, uprightness. Start of a new word. Friendly. Synonyms: accessible, companionable, genial, neighborly, affable, complaisant, hearty, sociable, affectionate, cordial, kind, social, amicable, favorable, kindly, tender, brotherly, fond, loving, well-disposed. Friendly, a set of persons, signifies having the disposition of a friend. A set of acts, it signifies befitting or worthy of a friend. The adjective friendly does not reach the full significance of the nouns friend and friendship. One may be friendly to those who are not his friends, and to be in friendly relations often signifies little more than not to be hostile. In its application to persons, accessible is used of public and eminent persons, who might, if disposed, hold themselves at a distance from others. Companionable and sociable refer to manner and behavior. Cordial and genial express genuine kindliness of heart. We speak of a cordial greeting, a favorable reception, a neighborly call, a sociable visitor, an amicable settlement, a kind interest, a friendly regard, a hearty welcome. The Saxon friendly is stronger than the Latin amicable. The amicable may be merely formal, the friendly is from the heart. Fond is commonly applied to an affection that becomes, or at least appears, excessive. Affectionate, devoted, and tender are almost always used in a high and good sense, as, an affectionate son, a devoted friend, the tender mercy of our God, Luke I, 78. Compare friendship. Antonyms: adverse, belligerent, distant, ill-disposed, unfriendly, alienated, cold, estranged, indifferent, unkind, antagonistic, contentious, frigid, inimical, warlike. Bellicose, disaffected, hostile. Start of a new word. Friendship. Synonyms: affection, comedy, esteem, goodwill, amity, consideration, favor, love, attachment, devotion, friendliness, regard. Friendship is a deep, quiet, enduring affection, founded upon mutual respect and esteem. Friendship is always mutual. There may be unreciprocated affection or attachment, unrequited love, or even unrecognized and unappreciated devotion, but never unreciprocated or unrequited friendship. One may have friendly feelings toward an enemy, but while there is hostility or coldness on one side, there cannot be friendship between the two. Friendliness is a quality of friendly feeling, without the deep and settled attachment implied in the state of friendship. Comedy is mutual kindly courtesy, with care of each other's right, and amity a friendly feeling and relation, not necessarily implying special friendliness, as, the comedy of nations, or amity between neighboring countries. Affection may be purely natural, friendship is a growth. Friendship is more intellectual and less emotional than love. It is easier to give reasons for friendship than for love. Friendship is more calm and quiet, love more fervent. Love often rises to intensest passion. We cannot speak of the passion of friendship. Friendship implies some degree of equality, while love does not. We can speak of man's love toward God, not of his friendship for God. There is more latitude in the use of the concrete noun friend. Abraham was called the friend of God, Christ was called the friend of sinners. Compare acquaintance, love. Antonyms: see synonyms for battle, enmity, feud, hatred. Prepositions: the friendship of one person for or toward another, or the friendship between them. Start of a new word. Frighten. Synonyms: affright, appall, cow, dismay, scare, alarm, browbeat, daunt, intimidate, terrify. One is frightened by a cause of fear addressed directly and suddenly to the senses. He is intimidated by an apprehension of contingent consequences dependent on some act of his own to be done or forborne. The means of intimidation may act through the senses, or may appeal only to the intellect or the sensibilities. The sudden rush of an armed madman may frighten, the quiet leveling of a highwayman's pistol intimidates. A savage beast is intimidated by the keeper's whip. Employers may intimidate their employees from voting contrary to their will by threat of discharge. A mother may be intimidated through fear for her child. To browbeat or cow is to bring into a state of submissive fear. To daunt is to give pause or check to a violent, threatening, or even a brave spirit. To scare is to cause sudden, unnerving fear. To terrify is to awaken fear that is overwhelming. Compare alarm. Start of a new word. Frugality. Synonyms: economy, parsimony, saving, sparing, miserliness, providence, scrimping, thrift. Parsimoniousness, prudence. Economy is a wise and careful administration of the means at one's disposal. Frugality is a withholding of expenditure, or sparing of supplies or provision, to a noticeable and often to a painful degree. Parsimony is excessive and unreasonable saving for the sake of saving. Frugality exalted into a virtue to be practiced for its own sake, instead of as a means to an end, becomes the vice of parsimony. Miserliness is the denying oneself and others the ordinary comforts or even necessaries of life, for the mere sake of hoarding money. Prudence and providence look far ahead, and sacrifice the present to the future, saving as much as may be necessary for that end. See prudence. Thrift seeks not merely to save, but to earn. Economy manages, frugality saves, providence plans, thrift at once earns and saves, with a view to wholesome and profitable expenditure at a fitting time. See abstinence. Antonyms: abundance, bounty, liberality, opulence, waste, affluence, extravagance, luxury, riches, wealth. Start of a new word. Garrulous. Synonyms: chattering, loquacious, talkative, verbose. Garrulous signifies given to constant trivial talking. Chattering signifies uttering rapid, noisy, and unintelligible, or scarcely intelligible, sounds, whether articulate words or such as resemble them. Chattering is often used of vocal sounds that may be intelligible by themselves but are ill understood owing to confusion of many voices or other cause. The talkative person has a strong disposition to talk, with or without an abundance of words, or many ideas. The loquacious person has an abundant flow of language and much to say on any subject suggested, either may be lively and for a time entertaining. The garrulous person is tedious, repetitious, petty, and self-absorbed. Verbose is applied to utterances more formal than conversation, as to writings or public addresses. We speak of a chattering monkey or a chattering idiot, a talkative child, a talkative or loquacious woman, a garrulous old man, a verbose writer. Compare circumlocution. Antonyms: laconic, reserved, reticent, silent, speechless, taciturn. Start of a new word. Gender. Synonym: sex. Sex is a distinction among living beings. It is also the characteristic by which most living beings are distinguished from inanimate things, which are of no sex. Gender is a distinction in language partially corresponding to this distinction in nature. While there are but two sexes, there are in some languages, as in English and German, 3 genders. The French language has but 2 genders and makes the names of all inanimate objects either masculine or feminine. Some languages are without the distinction of gender, and those that maintain it are often quite arbitrary in its application. We speak of the masculine or feminine gender, the male or female sex. Start of a new word. General. Synonyms: common, familiar, ordinary, universal, commonplace, frequent, popular, usual. Customary, habitual, prevalent, everyday, normal, public. Common signifies frequently occurring, not out of the regular course, not exceptional, hence, not above the average, not excellent or distinguished, inferior, or even low. Common also signifies pertaining to or participated in by 2 or more persons or things, as, sorrow is common to the race. General may signify pertaining equally to all of a class, race, etc., but very commonly signifies pertaining to the greater number, but not necessarily to all. Universal applies to all without exception. General applies to all with possible or comparatively slight exceptions. Common applies to very many without deciding whether they are even a majority. A common remark is one we often hear. A general experience is one that comes to the majority of people. A universal experience is one from which no human being is exempt. It is dangerous for a debater to affirm a universal proposition, since that can be negated by a single exception, while a general statement is not invalidated even by adducing many exceptions. We say a common opinion, common experience, a general rule, general truth, a universal law. Compare synonyms for normal, usual. Antonyms: exceptional, infrequent, rare, singular, uncommon, unknown, unusual. Start of a new word. Generous. Synonyms: bountiful, free, liberal, noble, chivalrous, free-handed, magnanimous, open-handed, disinterested, free-hearted, munificent, open-hearted. Generous, genus, a race, primarily signifies having the qualities worthy of noble or honorable birth, hence, free and abundant in giving, giving freely, heartily, and self-sacrificingly. As regards giving, generous refers rather to the self-sacrificing heartiness of the giver, liberal to the amount of the gift. A child may show himself generous in the gift of an apple, a millionaire makes a liberal donation. A generous gift, however, is commonly thought of as both ample and hearty. A munificent gift is vast in amount, whatever the motive of its bestowal. One may be free with another's money, he can be generous only with his own. Disinterested suggests rather the thought of one's own self-denial. Generous, of one's hearty interest in another's welfare or happiness. One is magnanimous by a greatness of soul, magnus, great, and animus, soul, that rises above all that is poor, mean, or weak, especially above every petty or ignoble motive or feeling pertaining to one's self, and thus above resentment of injury or insult. One is generous by a kindness of heart that would rejoice in the welfare rather than in the punishment of the offender. Antonyms: avaricious, greedy, mean, niggardly, penurious, rapacious, close, ignoble, miserly, parsimonious, petty, stingy. Covetous, illiberal. Start of a new word. Genius. Synonyms: talent, talents. Genius is exalted intellectual power capable of operating independently of tuition and training, and marked by an extraordinary faculty for original creation, invention, discovery, expression, etc. Talent is marked mental ability, and in a special sense, a particular and uncommon aptitude for some special mental work or attainment. Genius is higher than talent, more spontaneous, less dependent upon instruction, less amenable to training. Talent is largely the capacity to learn, acquire, appropriate, adapt oneself to demand. Yet the genius that has won the largest and most enduring success has been joined with tireless industry and painstaking. Compare synonyms for mind, power. Antonyms: dullness, folly, imbecility, obtuseness, senselessness, stupidity. Start of a new word. Get. Synonyms: achieve, attain, gain, procure, secure, acquire, earn, obtain, receive, win. Get is a most comprehensive word. A person gets whatever he comes to possess or experience, whether with or without endeavor, expectation, or desire. He gets a bargain, a blow, a fall, a fever. He gains what he comes to by effort or striving. The swimmer gains the shore. A man acquires by continuous and ordinarily by slow process, as one acquires a foreign language. A person is sometimes said to gain and often to acquire what has not been an object of direct endeavor. In the pursuits of trade, he incidentally gains some knowledge of foreign countries. He acquires by association with others a correct or incorrect accent. He acquires a bronzed complexion by exposure to a tropical sun. In such use, what he gains is viewed as desirable. What he acquires as slowly and gradually resulting. A person earns what he gives an equivalent of labor for, though he may not get it. On the other hand, he may get what he has not earned. The temptation to all dishonesty is the desire to get a living or a fortune without earning it. When one gets the object of his desire, he is said to obtain it, whether he has gained or earned it or not. Win denotes contest, with a suggestion of chance or hazard. In popular language, a person is often said to win a lawsuit, or to win in a suit at law, but in legal phrase he is said to gain his suit, case, or cause. In receiving, one is strictly passive. He may get an estate by his own exertions or by inheritance. In the latter case he is said to receive it. One obtains a thing commonly by some direct effort of his own. He procures it commonly by the intervention of someone else. He procures a dinner or an interview. He secures what has seemed uncertain or elusive, when he gets it firmly into his possession or under his control. Compare synonyms for attain, make, reach. Antonyms: see synonyms for abandon. Start of a new word. Gift. Synonyms: benefaction, boon, bribe, grant, largesse, bequest, bounty, donation, gratuity, present. A gift is in the popular, and also in the legal sense that which is voluntarily bestowed without expectation of return or compensation. Gift is now almost always used in the good sense, bribe always in the evil sense to signify payment for a dishonorable service under the semblance of a gift. In scriptural language gift is often used for bribe. The king by judgment establisheth the land, but he that receiveth gifts overthroweth it. Prov 29:4. A benefaction is a charitable gift, generally of large amount, and viewed as of enduring value, as an endowment for a college. A donation is something, perhaps of great, never of trivial value, given usually on some public ground, as to a cause or to a person representing a cause, but not necessarily of value beyond the immediate present, as a donation to a pastor. A gratuity is usually something of moderate value and is always given as to an inferior, and as of favor, not of right, as a gratuity to a waiter. Largesse is archaic for a bountiful gratuity, usually to be distributed among many, as among the heralds at ancient tournaments. A present is a gift of friendship or conciliation, and given as to an equal or a superior. No one's pride is hurt by accepting what is viewed as strictly a present. A boon is a gift that has been desired or craved or perhaps asked, or something freely given that meets some great desire. A grant is commonly considerable in amount and given by public authority, as a grant of public lands for a college. Antonyms: compensation, earnings, guerdon, penalty, remuneration, wages. Start of a new word. Give. Synonyms: bestow, communicate, deliver, grant, supply. Cede, confer, furnish, impart. To give is primarily to transfer to another's possession or ownership without compensation. In its secondary sense in popular use, it is to put into another's possession by any means and on any terms whatever. A buyer may say, "Give me the goods, and I will give you the money." We speak of giving answers, information, etc., and often of giving what is not agreeable to the recipient, as blows, medicine, reproof, but when there is nothing in the context to indicate the contrary, give is always understood in its primary sense, as, "This book was given me." Give thus becomes, like get, a term of such general import as to be a synonym for a wide variety of words. To grant is to put into one's possession in some formal way, or by authoritative act, as, Congress grants lands to a railroad corporation. To speak of granting a favor carries a claim or concession of superiority on the part of the one by whom the grant may be made. To confer has a similar sense, as, to confer a degree or an honor. We grant a request or petition, but do not confer it. To impart is to give of that which one still, to a greater or less degree, retains. The teacher imparts instruction. To bestow is to give that of which the receiver stands in especial need. We bestow alms. Prepositions: we give money to a person for a thing, for a purpose, etc., or without preposition, give a person a sum of money. We give a thing to or into one's care or keeping. The weary fugitive gave himself up to his pursuers. Start of a new word. Govern. Synonyms: command, curb, influence, mold, reign over, rule, control, direct, manage, reign, restrain, sway. Govern carries the idea of authoritative administration or some exercise of authority that is at once effective and continuous. Control is effective, but may be momentary or occasional. One controls what he holds or can hold at will absolutely in check, as, a skillful horseman controls a spirited horse. A person controls his temper. We say to one who is excited, "Control yourself." A person commands another when he has, or claims, the right to make that other do his will, with power of inflicting penalty if not obeyed. He controls another whom he can effectually prevent from doing anything contrary to his will. He governs one whom he actually does cause, regularly or constantly, to obey his will. A parent may command a child whom he cannot govern or control. The best teachers are not greatly prone to command, but govern or control their pupils largely by other means. Command is, however, often used in the sense of securing, as well as requiring, submission or obedience, as when we speak of a commanding influence. A man commands the situation when he can shape events as he pleases. A fortress commands the region when no enemy can pass against its resistance. Govern implies the exercise of knowledge and judgment as well as power. To rule is more absolute and autocratic than to govern. To sway is to move by quiet but effectual influence. To mold is not only to influence feeling and action, but to shape character. To manage is to secure by skillful contrivance the doing of one's will by those whom one cannot directly control. A wise mother, by gentle means, sways the feelings and molds the lives of her children. To be able to manage servants is an important element of good housekeeping. The word reign, once so absolute, now simply denotes that one holds the official station of sovereign in a monarchy, with or without effective power. The Queen of England reigns. The Tsar of Russia both reigns and rules. Antonyms: be in subjection, be subject, comply, obey, submit, yield. Start of a new word. Graceful. Synonym: beautiful. That which is graceful is marked by elegance and harmony, with ease of action, attitude, or posture, or delicacy of form. Graceful commonly suggests motion or the possibility of motion. Beautiful may apply to absolute fixity. A landscape or a blue sky is beautiful, but neither is graceful. Graceful commonly applies to beauty as addressed to the eye, though we often speak of a graceful poem or a graceful compliment. Graceful applies to the perfection of motion, especially of the lighter motions, which convey no suggestion of stress or strain, and are in harmonious curves. Apart from the thought of motion, graceful denotes a pleasing harmony of outline, proportion, etc., with a certain degree of delicacy. A Hercules is massive, and Apollo is graceful. We speak of a graceful attitude, graceful drapery. Compare beautiful, becoming. Antonyms: see synonyms for awkward. Start of a new word. Grief. Synonyms: affliction, melancholy, regret, sorrow, trouble, distress, mourning, sadness, tribulation, woe. Grief is acute mental pain resulting from loss, misfortune, or deep disappointment. Grief is more acute and less enduring than sorrow. Sorrow and grief are for definite cause. Sadness and melancholy may arise from a vague sense of want or loss, from a low state of health, or other ill-defined cause. Sadness may be momentary, melancholy is more enduring, and may become chronic. Affliction expresses a deep heart sorrow and is applied also to the misfortune producing such sorrow. Mourning most frequently denotes sorrow publicly expressed, or the public expression of such sorrow as may reasonably be expected, as, it is common to observe 30 days of mourning on the death of an officer of state. Antonyms: see synonyms for happiness. Prepositions: grief at a loss, for a friend. Start of a new word. Habit. Synonyms: custom, habitude, routine, system, use, fashion, practice, rule, usage, wont. Habit is a tendency or inclination toward an action or condition, which by repetition has become easy, spontaneous, or even unconscious, or an action or regular series of actions, or a condition so induced. Custom is the uniform doing of the same act in the same circumstance for a definite reason. Routine is the doing of customary acts in a regular and uniform sequence and is more mechanical than custom. It is the custom of tradesmen to open at a uniform hour, and to follow a regular routine of business until closing time. Habit always includes an involuntary tendency, natural or acquired, greatly strengthened by frequent repetition of the act, and may be uncontrollable, or even unconscious. Habitude is habitual relation or association. Custom is chiefly used of the action of many, habit of the action of one. We speak of the customs of society, the habits of an individual. Fashion is the generally recognized custom in the smaller matters, especially in dress. A rule is prescribed either by some external authority or by one's own will, as, it is the rule of the house, or, I make it my invariable rule. System is the coordination of many acts or things into a unity, and is more and better than routine. Use and usage denote the manner of using something. We speak of one person's use of language, but of the usage of many. A use or usage is almost always a habit. Practice is the active doing of something in a systematic way. We do not speak of the practice, but of the habit of going to sleep. We speak of a tradesman's custom, a lawyer's or a physician's practice. Educationally, practice is the voluntary and persistent attempt to make skill a habit, as, practice in penmanship. Wont is blind and instinctive habit like that which attaches an animal to a locality. The word is now almost wholly poetic. Compare dress. Start of a new word. Happen. Synonyms: bechance, chance, fall out, supervene, befall, come to pass, occur, take place. Betide, fall. A thing is said to happen when no design is manifest, or none especially thought of. It is said to chance when it appears to be the result of accident. Compare synonyms for accident. An incident happens or occurs, something external or actual happens to one, a thought or fancy occurs to him. Befall and betide are transitive, happen is intransitive, something befalls or betides a person or happens to him. Betide is especially used for anticipated evil, thought of as waiting and coming at its appointed time, as, what betide him. One event supervenes upon another event, one disease upon another, etc. Transpire, in the sense of happen, is not authorized by good usage. A thing that has happened is properly said to transpire when it becomes known. Prepositions: an event happens to a person happens on or upon a fact, discovery, etc. Start of a new word. Happiness. Synonyms: blessedness, delight, gladness, pleasure, bliss, ecstasy, gratification, rapture, cheer, enjoyment, joy, rejoicing, comfort, felicity, merriment, satisfaction, contentment, gaiety, mirth, triumph. Gratification is the giving any mental or physical desire something that it craves. Satisfaction is the giving such a desire all that it craves. Happiness is the positively agreeable experience that springs from the possession of good, the gratification or satisfaction of the desires or the relief from pain and evil. Comfort may be almost wholly negative, being found in security or relief from that which pains or annoys. There is comfort by a warm fireside on a wintry night. The sympathy of a true friend affords comfort in sorrow. Enjoyment is more positive, always implying something to be definitely and consciously delighted in. A sick person finds comfort and relief from pain, while he may be far from a state of enjoyment. Pleasure is still more vivid, being an arousing of the faculties to an intensely agreeable activity. Satisfaction is more tranquil than pleasure, being the agreeable consciousness of having all that our faculties demand or crave. When a worthy pleasure is past, a worthy satisfaction remains. As referring to a mental state, gratification is used to denote a mild form of happiness resulting from some incident not of very great importance. Satisfaction should properly express a happiness deeper, more complete, and more abiding, but as intellect or sensibilities of a low order may find satisfaction in that which is very poor or unworthy, the word has come to be feeble and tame in ordinary use. Happiness is more positive than comfort, enjoyment, or satisfaction, more serene and rational than pleasure. Pleasure is of necessity transient, happiness is abiding, and may be eternal. Thus, we speak of pleasures, but the plural of happiness is scarcely used. Happiness, in the full sense, is mental or spiritual or both, and is viewed as resulting from some worthy gratification or satisfaction. We may speak of a brute as experiencing comfort or pleasure, but scarcely as in possession of happiness. We speak of vicious pleasure, delight, or joy, but not of vicious happiness. Felicity is a philosophical term, colder and more formal than happiness. Gladness is happiness that overflows, expressing itself in countenance, voice, manner, and action. Joy is more intense than happiness, deeper than gladness, to which it is akin, nobler and more enduring than pleasure. Gaiety is more superficial than joy, more demonstrative than gladness. Rejoicing is happiness or joy that finds utterance in word, song, festivity, etc. Delight is vivid, overflowing happiness of a somewhat transient kind. Ecstasy is a state of extreme or extravagant delight so that the one affected by it seems almost beside himself with joy. Rapture is closely allied to ecstasy, but is more serene, exalted, and enduring. Triumph is such joy as results from victory, success, achievement. Blessedness is at once the state and the sense of being divinely blessed, as, the blessedness of the righteous. Bliss is ecstatic, perfected happiness, as, the bliss of heaven. Compare comfort. Antonyms: see synonyms for grief. Start of a new word. Happy. Synonyms: blessed, cheering, gay, lucky, rejoiced, blissful, cheery, glad, merry, rejoicing, blithe, delighted, jocund, mirthful, smiling, blithesome, delightful, jolly, pleased, sprightly, bright, dexterous, joyful, prosperous, successful, buoyant, felicitous, joyous, rapturous, sunny. Cheerful, fortunate. Happy primarily refers to something that comes by good hap, a chance that brings prosperity, benefit, or success. And grasps the skirts of happy chance. Tennyson in Memoriam 63, St. 2. In this sense happy is closely allied to fortunate and lucky. See fortunate. Happy has, however, so far diverged from this original sense as to apply to advantages where chance is not recognized, or is even excluded by direct reference to the divine will, when it becomes almost equivalent to blessed. Behold, happy is the man whom God correcteth. Job v. 17. Happy is also applied to the ready dexterity or skill by which favorable results, usually in minor matters, are secured, when it becomes a synonym for dexterous, felicitous, and the associated words, as, he has a happy wit, happy at retort, compare clever. In its most frequent present use, happy is applied to the state of one enjoying happiness, or to that by which happiness is expressed, as, a happy heart, a happy face, happy laughter, happy tears, compare synonyms for happiness. Cheerful applies to the possession or expression of a moderate and tranquil happiness. A cheery word spontaneously gives cheer to others, a cheering word is more distinctly planned to cheer and encourage. Gay applies to an effusive and superficial happiness, often not really worthy of that name, perhaps resulting largely from abundant animal spirits. We speak of gay revelers or a gay horse. A buoyant spirit is, as it were, borne up by joy and hope. A sunny disposition has a constant tranquil brightness that irradiates all who come within its influence. Antonyms, compare synonyms for grief. Prepositions, a happy event for him, happy at a reply, happy in his home, with his friends, among his children, happy at the discovery, over his success. Start of a new word. Harmony. Synonyms, accord, concurrence, consistency, uniformity, accordance, conformity, consonance, union, agreement, congruity, symmetry, unison, amity, consent, unanimity, unity. Concord, when tones, thoughts, or feelings, individually different, combine to form a consistent and pleasing whole, there is harmony. Harmony is deeper and more essential than agreement. We may have a superficial, forced, or patched-up agreement, but never a superficial, forced, or patched-up harmony. Concord is less full and spiritual than harmony. Concord implies more volition than accord, as, their views were found to be in perfect accord, or, by conference concord was secured. We do not secure accord, but discover it. We may speak of being in accord with a person on one point, but harmony is wider in range. Conformity is correspondence in form, manner, or use. The word often signifies submission to authority or necessity, and may be as far as possible from harmony, as, the attempt to secure conformity to an established religion. Congruity involves the element of suitableness. Consistency implies the absence of conflict or contradiction in views, statements, or acts which are brought into comparison, as in the different statements of the same person or the different periods of one man's life. Unanimity is the complete hearty agreement of many. Consent and concurrence refer to decision or action, but consent is more passive than concurrence. One speaks by general consent when no one in the assembly cares to make formal objection. A decision of the Supreme Court depends upon the concurrence of a majority of the judges. Compare agree, friendship, melody. Antonyms, antagonism, contest, discord, hostility, schism, battle, controversy, disproportion, incongruity, separation, conflict, difference, dissension, inconsistency, variance, contention, disagreement, disunion, opposition, warfare. Start of a new word. Harvest. Synonyms, crop, harvest home, ingathering, result, fruit, harvesting, proceeds, return, growth, harvest tide, produce, yield. Harvest feast, harvest time, product, harvest festival, increase, reaping, harvest, from the Anglo-Saxon, signified originally autumn, and as that is the usual season of gathering ripened crops in northern lands, the word came to its present meaning of the season of gathering ripened grain or fruits, whether summer or autumn, and hence a crop gathered or ready for gathering, also, the act or process of gathering a crop or crops. The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Luke X, 2. Lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. John 4:35. Harvest is the elegant and literary word, crop is the common and commercial expression. We say a man sells his crop, but we should not speak of his selling his harvest. We speak of an ample or abundant harvest, a good crop. Harvest is applied almost wholly to grain, crop applies to almost anything that is gathered in. We speak of the potato crop, not the potato harvest. We may say either the wheat crop or the wheat harvest. Produce is a collective word for all that is produced in farming or gardening, and is, in modern usage, almost wholly restricted to this sense. We speak of produce collectively, but of a product or various products, vegetables, fruits, eggs, butter, etc., may be termed farm produce, or the products of the farm. Product is a word of wider application than produce. We speak of the products of manufacturing, the products of thought, or the product obtained by multiplying one number by another. The word proceeds is chiefly used of the return from an investment. We speak of the produce of a farm, but of the proceeds of the money invested in farming. The yield is what the land gives up to the farmer's demand. We speak of the return from an expenditure of money or labor, but of the yield of corn or oats. Harvest has also a figurative use, such as crop more rarely permits. We term a religious revival a harvest of souls. The result of lax enforcement of law is a harvest of crime. As regards time, harvest, harvesttide, and harvest time alike denote the period or season when the crops are or should be gathered, tide being simply the Old Saxon word for time. Harvest home ordinarily denotes the festival of harvest, and when used to denote simply the season always gives a suggestion of festivity and rejoicing, such as harvest and harvest time by themselves do not express. Start of a new word. Hatred. Synonyms: abhorrence, detestation, hostility, rancor, anger, dislike, ill will, repugnance, animosity, enmity, malevolence, resentment, antipathy, grudge, malice, revenge, aversion, hate, malignity, spite. Repugnance applies to that which one feels himself summoned or impelled to do or to endure, and from which he instinctively draws back. Aversion is the turning away of the mind or feelings from some person or thing, or from some course of action, etc. Hate, or hatred, as applied to persons, is intense and continued aversion, usually with disposition to injure. Anger is sudden and brief, hatred is lingering and enduring. Her wrath became a hate, Tennyson Pelleas and A. Tar Street 16. As applied to things, hatred is intense aversion, with desire to destroy or remove. Hatred of evil is a righteous passion, akin to abhorrence, but more vehement. Malice involves the active intent to injure. In the legal sense, malice is the intent to injure, even though with no personal ill will, as, a highwayman would be said to entertain malice toward the unknown traveler whom he attacks. Malice is direct, pressing toward a result. Malignity is deep, lingering, and venomous, though often impotent to act. Rancor, akin to rancid, is cherished malignity that has soured and festered and is virulent and implacable. Spite is petty malice that delights to inflict stinging pain. Grudge is deeper than spite, it is sinister and bitter. Grudge, resentment, and revenge are all retaliatory, grudge being the disposition, revenge the determination to repay real or supposed offense with injury. Revenge may denote also the retaliatory act. Resentment, the best word of the three, always holds itself to be justifiable, but looks less certainly to action than grudge or revenge. Simple goodness may arouse the hatred of the wicked. They will be moved to revenge only by what they deem an injury or affront. Compare abomination, anger, antipathy, enmity. Antonyms: see synonyms for friendship, love. Start of a new word. Have. Synonyms: be in possession of, hold, occupy, own, possess. Be possessed of. Have is the most general word, and is applied to whatever belongs to or is connected with one. A man has a head or a headache, a fortune or an opinion, a friend or an enemy. He has time, or has need. He may be said to have what is his own, what he has borrowed, what has been entrusted to him, or what he has stolen. To possess a thing is to have the ownership with control and enjoyment of it. To hold is to have in one's hand, or securely in one's control. A man holds his friend's coat for a moment, or he holds a struggling horse, he holds a promissory note, or holds an office. To own is to have the right of property in, to possess is to have that right in actual exercise, to occupy is to have possession and use, with some degree of permanency, with or without ownership. A man occupies his own house or a room in a hotel. A man may own a farm of which he is not in possession because a tenant occupies it and is determined to hold it. The proprietor owns the property, but the tenant is in possession. To be in possession differs from possess in that to possess denotes both right and fact, while to be in possession denotes simply the fact with no affirmation as to the right. To have reason is to be endowed with the faculty. To be in possession of one's reason denotes that the faculty is in actual present exercise. Start of a new word. Hazard. Synonyms: accident, chance, danger, jeopardy, risk, casualty, contingency, fortuity, peril, venture. Hazard is the incurring the possibility of loss or harm for the possibility of benefit. Danger may have no compensating alternative. In hazard the possibilities of gain or loss are nearly balanced. In risk the possibility of loss is the chief thought. The foolhardy take great risks in mere wantonness. In chance and venture the hope of good predominates. We speak of a merchant's venture, but of an insurance company's risk. One may be driven by circumstances to run a risk. He freely seeks a venture. We speak of the chance of winning, the hazard or risk of losing. Accidents are incalculable. Casualties may be to a certain extent anticipated. Death and wounds are casualties of battle, certain to happen to some, but uncertain as to whom or how many. A contingency is simply an indeterminable future event, which may or may not be attended with danger or risk. See accident, danger. Antonyms: assurance, necessity, protection, safety, surety. Certainty, plan, safeguard, security. Start of a new word. Healthy. Synonyms: hale, hygienic, sanitary, vigorous, healthful, salubrious, sound, well, hearty, salutary, strong, wholesome. Healthy is most correctly used to signify possessing or enjoying health or its results, as a healthy person, a healthy condition. Healthful signifies promotive of health, tending or adapted to confer, preserve, or promote health, as a healthful climate. Wholesome food in a healthful climate makes a healthy man. With healthful are ranged the words hygienic, salubrious, salutary, sanitary, and wholesome, while the other words are associated with healthy. Salubrious is always used in the physical sense, and is chiefly applied to air or climate. Salutary is now chiefly used in the moral sense, as a salutary lesson. Antonyms: delicate, failing, ill, unsound, worn, diseased, fainting, sick, wasted, worn down, emaciated, fragile, unhealthy, weak, worn out. Exhausted, frail. Start of a new word. Help. Synonyms: abet, befriend, foster, succor, uphold. Aid, cooperate, second, support, assist, encourage, stand by, sustain. Help expresses greater dependence and deeper need than aid. In extremity we say God help me, rather than God aid me. In time of danger we cry help. Help, rather than aid. Aid. To aid is to second another's own exertions. We can speak of helping the helpless, but not of aiding them. Help includes aid, but aid may fall short of the meaning of help. In law, to aid or abet makes one a principal. Compare synonyms for accessory. To cooperate is to aid as an equal, to assist implies a subordinate and secondary relation. One assists a fallen friend to rise, he cooperates with him in helping others. Encourage refers to mental aid, as uphold now usually does, succor and support, oftenest to material assistance. We encourage the timid or despondent, succor the endangered, support the weak, uphold those who else might be shaken or cast down. Compare abet, promote. Antonyms: counteract, discourage, oppose, resist, thwart, withstand. Prepositions: help in an enterprise with money, help to success, against the enemy. Start of a new word. Heretic. Synonyms: dissenter, heresiarch, nonconformist, schismatic. Etymologically, a heretic is one who takes or chooses his own belief, instead of the belief of his church. Hence, a heretic is one who denies commonly accepted views, or who holds opinions contrary to the recognized standard or tenets of any established religious, philosophical, or other system, school, or party. The religious sense of the word is the predominant one. A schismatic is primarily one who produces a split or rent in the church. A heretic differs in doctrine from the religious body with which he is connected. A schismatic differs in doctrine or practice, or in both. A heretic may be reticent, or even silent. A schismatic introduces divisions. A heresiarch is the author of a heresy or the leader of a heretical party, and is thus at once a heretic and a schismatic. With advancing ideas of religious liberty, the odious sense once attached to these words is largely modified, and heretic is often used playfully. Dissenter and nonconformist are terms specifically applied to English subjects who hold themselves aloof from the Church of England. The former term is extended to non-adherents of the established church in some other countries, as Russia. Start of a new word. Heterogeneous. Synonyms: confused, mingled, unhomogeneous, conglomerate, miscellaneous, unlike, discordant, mixed, variant, dissimilar, non-homogeneous, various. Substances quite unlike are heterogeneous as regards each other. A heterogeneous mixture is one whose constituents are not only unlike in kind, but unevenly distributed. Cement is composed of substances such as lime, sand, and clay, which are heterogeneous as regards each other, but the cement is said to be homogeneous if the different constituents are evenly mixed throughout, so that any one portion of the mixture is exactly like any other. A substance may fail of being homogeneous and yet not be heterogeneous, in which case it is said to be non-homogeneous or unhomogeneous. A bar of iron that contains flaws, air bubbles, etc., or for any other reason is not of uniform structure and density throughout, though no foreign substance be mixed with the iron, is said to be non-homogeneous. A miscellaneous mixture may or may not be heterogeneous, if the objects are alike in kind, but different in size, form, quality, use, etc., and without special order or relation. The collection is miscellaneous. If the objects differ in kind, such a mixture is also, and more strictly, heterogeneous. A pile of unassorted lumber is miscellaneous. The contents of a schoolboy's pocket are commonly miscellaneous and might usually be termed heterogeneous as well. See complex. Antonyms: alike, homogeneous, identical, like, pure, same, similar, uniform. Start of a new word. Hide. Synonyms: bury, cover, entomb, overwhelm, suppress, cloak, disguise, screen, veil. Conceal, dissemble, mask, secrete. Hide is the general term, including all the rest, signifying to put out of sight or beyond ready observation or approach. A thing may be hidden by intention, by accident, or by the imperfection of the faculties of the one from whom it is hidden. In their games, children hide the slipper, or hide themselves from each other. A man unconsciously hides a picture from another by standing before it, or hides a thing from himself by laying something else over it. Even an unconscious object may hide another, as a cloud hides the sun, or a building hides some part of the prospect by intervening between it and the observer's position. As an act of persons, to conceal is always intentional. One may hide his face in anger, grief, or abstraction. He conceals his face when he fears recognition. A house is hidden by foliage. The bird's nest is artfully concealed. Secrete is a stronger word than conceal, and is used chiefly of such material objects as may be separated from the person, or from their ordinary surroundings, and put in unlooked-for places. A man conceals a scar on his face, but does not secrete it. A thief secretes stolen goods. An officer may also be said to secrete himself to watch the thief. A thing is covered by putting something over or around it, whether by accident or design. It is screened by putting something before it, always with some purpose of protection from observation, inconvenience, attack, censure, etc. In the figurative use, a person may hide honorable feelings, he conceals an evil or hostile intent. Anything which is effectually covered and hidden under any mass or accumulation is buried. Money is buried in the ground, a body is buried in the sea, a paper is buried under other documents. Whatever is buried is hidden or concealed, but there are many ways of hiding or concealing a thing without burying it. So a person may be covered with wraps, and not buried under them. Bury may be used of any object, entomb and inter only of a dead body. Figuratively, one may be said to be buried in business, in study, etc. Compare: immerse, palliate. Antonyms: admit, disclose, exhume, manifest, show, advertise, discover, expose, promulgate, tell, avow, disinter, lay bare, publish, uncover, betray, divulge, lay open, raise, unmask, confess, exhibit, make known, reveal, unveil. Start of a new word. High. Synonyms: elevated, exalted, noble, steep, towering, eminent, lofty, proud, tall, uplifted. Deep, while an antonym of high in usage, may apply to the very same distance simply measured in an opposite direction, high applying to vertical distance measured from below upward, and deep to vertical distance measured from above downward, as, a deep valley nestling between high mountains. High is a relative term signifying greatly raised above any object, base, or surface, in comparison with what is usual, or with some standard. A table is high if it exceeds 30 inches, a hill is not high at 100 feet. That is tall whose height is greatly in excess of its breadth or diameter, and whose actual height is great for an object of its kind, as, a tall tree, a tall man, tall grass. That is lofty which is imposing or majestic in height. We term a spire tall with reference to its altitude, or lofty with reference to its majestic appearance. That is elevated which is raised somewhat above its surroundings. That is eminent which is far above them, as, an elevated platform, an eminent promontory. In the figurative sense, elevated is less than eminent, and this less than exalted. We speak of high, lofty, or elevated thoughts, aims, etc., in the good sense, but sometimes of high feelings, looks, words, etc., in the invidious sense of haughty or arrogant. A high ambition may be merely selfish, a lofty ambition is worthy and noble. Towering, in the literal sense compares with lofty and majestic, but in the figurative sense, its use is almost always invidious, as, a towering passion. A towering ambition disregards and crushes all opposing considerations, however rational, lovely, or holy. Compare: steep. Antonyms: base, degraded, dwarfed, inferior, low, mean, short, stunted. Deep, depressed. Start of a new word. Hinder. Synonyms: baffle, clog, foil, obstruct, retard, balk, counteract, frustrate, oppose, stay, bar, delay, hamper, prevent, stop, block, embarrass, impede, resist, thwart. Check, encumber, interrupt. To hinder is to keep from action, progress, motion, or growth, or to make such action, progress, motion, or growth later in beginning or completion than it would otherwise have been. An action is prevented by anything that comes in before it to make it impossible. It is hindered by anything that keeps it from either beginning or ending so soon as it otherwise would, or as expected or intended. It is more common, however, to say that the start is delayed, the progress hindered. An action that is hindered does not take place at the appointed or appropriate time, that which is prevented does not take place at all. To hinder a thing long enough may amount to preventing it. A railroad train may be hindered by a snowstorm from arriving on time. It may by special order be prevented from starting. To retard is simply to make slow by any means whatever. To obstruct is to hinder, or possibly to prevent advance or passage by putting something in the way. To oppose or resist is to hinder, or possibly to prevent by directly contrary or hostile action, resist being the stronger term and having more suggestion of physical force. Obstructed roads hinder the march of an enemy, though there may be no force strong enough to oppose it. One opposes a measure, a motion, an amendment, or the like. It is a criminal offense to resist an officer in the discharge of his duty. The physical system may resist the attack of disease or the action of a remedy. Compare conquer, impediment, obstruct. Antonyms, see synonyms for quicken. Prepositions, hinder one in his progress, from acting promptly, by opposition. Start of a new word. History. Synonyms, account, biography, muniment, record, annals, chronicle, narration, register, archives, memoir, narrative, story. Autobiography, memorial, recital. History is a systematic record of past events. Annals and chronicles relate events with little regard to their relative importance, and with complete subserviency to their succession in time. Annals are yearly records, chronicles follow the order of time. Both necessarily lack emphasis, selection, and perspective. Archives are public records, which may be annals, or chronicles, or deeds of property, etc. Memoirs generally record the lives of individuals or facts pertaining to individual lives. A biography is distinctively a written account of one person's life and actions. An autobiography is a biography written by the person whose life it records. Annals, archives, chronicles, biographies, and memoirs and other records furnish the materials of history. History recounts events with careful attention to their importance, their mutual relations, their causes and consequences, selecting and grouping events on the ground of interest or importance. History is usually applied to such an account of events affecting communities and nations, though sometimes we speak of the history of a single eminent life. Compare record. Antonyms, see synonyms for fiction. Start of a new word. Holy. Synonyms, blessed, devoted, hallowed, saintly, consecrated, divine, sacred, set apart. Sacred is applied to that which is to be regarded as inviolable on any account, and so is not restricted to divine things, therefore in its lower applications it is less than holy. That which is sacred may be made so by institution, decree, or association. That which is holy is so by its own nature, possessing intrinsic moral purity, and, in the highest sense, absolute moral perfection. God is holy, his commands are sacred. Holy may be applied also to that which is hallowed, as, the place whereon thou standest is holy ground, Acts 3:5. In such use holy is more than sacred, as if the very qualities of a spiritual or divine presence were imparted to the place or object. Divine has been used with great looseness, as applying to anything eminent or admirable, in the line either of goodness or of mere power, as to eloquence, music, etc., but there is a commendable tendency to restrict the word to its higher sense, as designating that which belongs to or is worthy of the divine being. Compare perfect, pure. Antonyms, abominable, cursed, polluted, unconsecrated, unholy, wicked, common, impure, secular, unhallowed, unsanctified, worldly. Start of a new word. Home. Synonyms, abode, dwelling, habitation, hearthstone, ingleside, domicile, fireside, hearth, house, residence. Abode, dwelling, and habitation are used with little difference of meaning to denote the place where one habitually lives. Abode and habitation belong to the poetic or elevated style. Even dwelling is not used in familiar speech. A person says my house, my home, or more formally my residence. Home, from the Anglo-Saxon, denoting originally a dwelling, came to mean an endeared dwelling as the scene of domestic love and happy and cherished family life, a sense to which there is an increasing tendency to restrict the word desirably so, since we have other words to denote the mere dwelling place. We say the wretched tenement could not be called home, or the humble cabin was dear to him as the home of his childhood. Home's not merely four square walls, though with pictures hung and gilded. Home is where affection calls, where its shrine the heart has builded. Thus the word comes to signify any place of rest and peace, and especially heaven, as the soul's peaceful and eternal dwelling place. Start of a new word. Honest. Synonyms, candid, frank, ingenuous, true, equitable, genuine, just, trustworthy, fair, good, sincere, trusty, faithful, honorable, straightforward, upright. One who is honest in the ordinary sense acts or is always disposed to act with careful regard for the rights of others, especially in matters of business or property. One who is honorable scrupulously observes the dictates of a personal honor that is higher than any demands of mercantile law or public opinion, and will do nothing unworthy of his own inherent nobility of soul. The honest man does not steal, cheat, or defraud. The honorable man will not take an unfair advantage that would be allowed him, or will make a sacrifice which no one could require of him, when his own sense of right demands it. One who is honest in the highest and fullest sense is scrupulously careful to adhere to all known truth and right even in thought. In this sense honest differs from honorable as having regard rather to absolute truth and right than to even the highest personal honor. Compare candid, justice. Antonyms: deceitful, faithless, hypocritical, perfidious, unfaithful, dishonest, false, lying, traitorous, unscrupulous, disingenuous, fraudulent, mendacious, treacherous, untrue. Start of a new word. Horizontal. Synonyms: even, flat, level, plain, plain. Horizontal signifies in the direction of or parallel to the horizon. For practical purposes level and horizontal are identical, though level, as the more popular word, is more loosely used of that which has no especially noticeable elevations or inequalities, as a level road. Flat, according to its derivation from the Anglo-Saxon flet, a floor, applies to a surface only, and, in the first and most usual sense, to a surface that is horizontal or level in all directions. A line may be level, a floor is flat. Flat is also applied in a derived sense to any plane surface without irregularities or elevations, as a picture may be painted on the flat surface of a perpendicular wall. Plane applies only to a surface, and is used with more mathematical exactness than flat. The adjective plain, originally the same word as plane, is now rarely used except in the figurative senses, but the original sense appears in the noun, as we speak of a wide plain. We speak of a horizontal line, a flat morass, a level road, a plain country, a plain surface, especially in the scientific sense. That which is level may not be even. And that which is even may not be level. A level road may be very rough, a slope may be even. Antonyms: broken, inclined, rolling, rugged, sloping, hilly, irregular, rough, slanting, uneven. Start of a new word. Humane. Synonyms: benevolent, compassionate, human, pitying, benignant, forgiving, kind, sympathetic, charitable, gentle, kind-hearted, tender, clement, gracious, merciful, tender-hearted. Human denotes what pertains to mankind, with no suggestion as to its being good or evil, as the human race, human qualities. We speak of human achievements, virtues, or excellences, human follies, vices, or crimes. Humane denotes what may rightly be expected of mankind at its best in the treatment of sentient beings. A humane enterprise or endeavor is one that is intended to prevent or relieve suffering. The humane man will not needlessly inflict pain upon the meanest thing that lives. A merciful man is disposed to withhold or mitigate the suffering even of the guilty. The compassionate man sympathizes with and desires to relieve actual suffering, while one who is humane would forestall and prevent the suffering which he sees to be possible. Compare mercy, pitiful, pity. Antonyms: see synonyms for barbarous. Start of a new word. Hunt. Synonyms: chase, hunting, inquisition, pursuit, search. A hunt may be either the act of pursuing or the act of seeking, or a combination of the two. A chase or pursuit is after that which is fleeing or departing, a search is for that which is hidden, a hunt may be for that which is either hidden or fleeing, a search is a minute and careful seeking, and is especially applied to a locality. We make a search of or through a house, for an object, in which connection it would be colloquial to say a hunt. Hunt never quite loses its association with field sports, where it includes both search and chase, the search till the game is hunted out, and the chase till it is hunted down. Figuratively, we speak of literary pursuits, or of the pursuit of knowledge, a search for reasons, the chase of fame or honor, hunt, in figurative use, inclines to the unfavorable sense of inquisition, but with more of dash and aggressiveness, as, a hunt for heresy. Start of a new word. Hypocrisy. Synonyms: affectation, formalism, pretense, sanctimony, cant, pharisaism, sanctimoniousness, sham. Dissimulation. Pietism, pretense, el pretendo, primarily signifies the holding something forward as having certain rights or claims, whether truly or falsely. In the good sense, it is now rarely used except with a negative, as, there can be no pretense that this is due. A false pretense implies the possibility of a true pretense, but, alone and unlimited, pretense commonly signifies the offering of something for what it is not. Hypocrisy is the false pretense of moral excellence, either as a cover for actual wrong, or for the sake of the credit and advantage attaching to virtue. Cant, el cantus, a song, primarily the sing-song iteration of the language of any party, school, or sect, denotes the mechanical and pretentious use of religious phraseology, without corresponding feeling or character. Sanctimoniousness is the assumption of a saintly manner without a saintly character. As cant is hypocrisy in utterance, so sanctimoniousness is hypocrisy in appearance, as in looks, tones, etc. Pietism, originally a word of good import, is now chiefly used for an unregulated emotionalism. Formalism is an exaggerated devotion to forms, rites, and ceremonies, without corresponding earnestness of heart. Sham, identical in origin with shame, is a trick or device that puts one to shame, or that shamefully disappoints expectation or falsifies appearance. Affectation is in matters of intellect, taste, etc., much what hypocrisy is in morals and religion. Affectation might be termed petty hypocrisy. Compare deception. Antonyms: candor, genuineness, ingenuousness, sincerity, truth, frankness, honesty, openness, transparency, truthfulness. Start of a new word. Hypocrite. Synonyms: cheat, deceiver, dissembler, impostor, pretender. A hypocrite, hypocrites, one who answers on the stage. An actor, especially a mimic actor, is one who acts a false part, or assumes a character other than the real. Deceiver is the most comprehensive term, including all the other words of the group. The deceiver seeks to give false impressions of any matter where he has an end to gain. The dissembler or hypocrite seeks to give false impressions in regard to himself. The dissembler is content if he can keep some base conduct or evil purpose from being discovered. The hypocrite seeks not merely to cover his vices, but to gain credit for virtue. The cheat and impostor endeavor to make something out of those they may deceive. The cheat is the inferior and more mercenary, as the thimble-rig gambler. The impostor may aspire to a fortune or a throne. Compare hypocrisy. Antonyms: the antonyms of hypocrite are to be found only in phrases embodying the adjectives candid, honest, ingenuous, sincere, true, etc. Start of a new word. Hypothesis. Synonyms: conjecture, scheme, supposition, system, guess, speculation, surmise, theory. A hypothesis is a statement of what is deemed possibly true, assumed and reasoned upon as if certainly true. With a view of reaching truth not yet surely known, especially, in the sciences, a hypothesis is a comprehensive tentative explanation of certain phenomena, which is meant to include all other facts of the same class, and which is assumed as true till there has been opportunity to bring all related facts into comparison. If the hypothesis explains all the facts, it is regarded as verified. Till then it is regarded as a working hypothesis, that is, one that may answer for present practical purposes. A hypothesis may be termed a comprehensive guess. A guess is a swift conclusion from data directly at hand, and held as probable or tentative, while one confessedly lacks material for absolute certainty. A conjecture is more methodical than a guess, while a supposition is still slower and more settled. A conjecture, like a guess, is preliminary and tentative. A supposition is more nearly final. A surmise is more floating and visionary, and often sinister, as, a surmise that a stranger may be a pickpocket. Theory is used of the mental coordination of facts and principles that may or may not prove correct. A machine may be perfect in theory, but useless in fact. Scheme may be used as nearly equivalent to theory, but is more frequently applied to proposed action, and in the sense of a somewhat visionary plan. A speculation may be wholly of the brain, resting upon no facts worthy of consideration. System is the highest of these terms, having most of assurance and fixity. A system unites many facts, phenomena, or doctrines into an orderly and consistent whole. We speak of a system of theology, of the Copernican system of the universe. Compare system. Antonyms: certainty, demonstration, discovery, evidence, fact, proof. Start of a new word. Idea. Synonyms: apprehension, design, impression, plan, archetype, fancy, judgment, purpose, belief, fantasy, model, sentiment, conceit, ideal, notion, supposition, concept, image, opinion, theory, conception, imagination, pattern, thought. Idea is in Greek a form or an image. The word signified in early philosophical use the archetype or primal image which the Platonic philosophy supposed to be the model or pattern that existing objects imperfectly embody. This high sense has nearly disappeared from the word idea, and has been largely appropriated by ideal, though something of the original meaning still appears when in theological or philosophical language we speak of the ideas of God. The present popular use of idea makes it to signify any product of mental apprehension or activity, considered as an object of knowledge or thought. This coincides with the primitive sense at but a single point that an idea is mental as opposed to anything substantial or physical. Thus, almost any mental product, as a belief, conception, design, opinion, etc., may now be called an idea. Compare fancy, ideal. Antonyms: actuality, fact, reality, substance. Start of a new word. Ideal. Synonyms: archetype, model, pattern, prototype, standard. Idea, original. An ideal is that which is conceived or taken as the highest type of excellence or ultimate object of attainment. The archetype is the primal form, actual or imaginary, according to which any existing thing is constructed. The prototype has or has had actual existence. In the derived sense, as in metrology, a prototype may not be the original form, but one having equal authority with that as a standard. An ideal may be primal, or may be slowly developed even from failures and by negations. An ideal is meant to be perfect, not merely the thing that has been attained or is to be attained, but the best conceivable thing that could by possibility be attained. The artist's ideal is his own mental image, of which his finished work is but an imperfect expression. The original is the first specimen, good or bad. The original of a master is superior to all copies. The standard may be below the ideal. The ideal is imaginary, and ordinarily unattainable. The standard is concrete, and ordinarily attainable, being a measure to which all else of its kind must conform, as the standard of weights and measures, of corn, or of cotton. The idea of virtue is the mental concept or image of virtue in general. The ideal of virtue is the mental concept or image of virtue in its highest conceivable perfection. Compare example, idea. Antonyms: accomplishment, action, doing, fact, practice, achievement, attainment, embodiment, incarnation, reality, act, development, execution, performance, realization. Start of a new word. Idiocy. Synonyms: fatuity, foolishness, incapacity, stupidity. Folly, imbecility, senselessness. Idiocy is a state of mental unsoundness amounting almost or quite to total absence of understanding. Imbecility is a condition of mental weakness, which may or may not be as complete as that of idiocy, but is at least such as to incapacitate for the serious duties of life. Incapacity, or lack of legal qualification for certain acts, necessarily results from imbecility, but may also result from other causes, as from insanity or from age, sex, etc., as the incapacity of a minor to make a contract. Idiocy or imbecility is weakness of mind, while insanity is disorder or abnormal action of mind. Folly and foolishness denote a want of mental and often of moral balance. Fatuity is sometimes used as equivalent to idiocy, but more frequently signifies conceited and excessive foolishness or folly. Stupidity is dullness and slowness of mental action, which may range all the way from lack of normal readiness to absolute imbecility. Compare insanity. Antonyms: acuteness, brilliancy, common sense, sagacity, soundness, astuteness, capacity, intelligence, sense, wisdom. Start of a new word. Idle. Synonyms: inactive, inert, slothful, trifling, unoccupied, indolent, lazy, sluggish, unemployed, vacant. Idle in all uses rests upon its root meaning, as derived from the Anglo-Saxon idle, which signifies vain, empty, useless. Idle thus denotes not primarily the absence of action, but vain action, the absence of useful, effective action. The idle schoolboy may be very actively whittling his desk or tormenting his neighbors. Doing nothing whatever is the secondary meaning of idle. One may be temporarily idle of necessity. If he is habitually idle, it is his own fault. Lazy signifies indisposed to exertion, averse to labor. Idleness is in fact, laziness is in disposition or inclination. A lazy person may chance to be employed in useful work, but he acts without energy or impetus. We speak figuratively of a lazy stream. The inert person seems like dead matter, characterized by inertia, powerless to move. The sluggish moves heavily and toilsomely. The most active person may sometimes find the bodily or mental powers sluggish. Slothful belongs in the moral realm, denoting a self-indulgent aversion to exertion. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom, it grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Prov 26:15. Indolent is a milder term for the same quality. The slothful man hates action, the indolent man loves inaction. Compare vain. Antonyms: active, busy, diligent, employed, industrious, occupied, working. Start of a new word. Ignorant. Synonyms: ill-informed, unenlightened, unlearned, untaught, illiterate, uninformed, unlettered, untutored. Uneducated, uninstructed, unskilled. Ignorance signifies destitute of education or knowledge, or lacking knowledge or information. It is thus a relative term. The most learned man is still ignorant of many things. Persons are spoken of as ignorant who have not the knowledge that has become generally diffused in the world. The ignorant savage may be well instructed in matters of the field and the chase, and is thus more properly untutored than ignorant. Illiterate is without letters and the knowledge that comes through reading. Unlettered is similar in meaning to illiterate, but less absolute. The unlettered man may have acquired the art of reading and writing and some elementary knowledge. The uneducated man has never taken any systematic course of mental training. Ignorance is relative, illiteracy is absolute. We have statistics of illiteracy, no statistics of ignorance are possible. Antonyms: educated, learned, sage, skilled, trained, well-informed, wise. Instructed. Start of a new word. Imagination. Synonyms: fancy, fantasy, fantasy. The old psychology treated of the reproductive imagination, which simply reproduces the images that the mind has in any way acquired, and the productive imagination which modifies and combines mental images so as to produce what is virtually new. To this reproductive imagination President Noah Porter and others have given the name of fantasy or fantasy, many psychologists preferring the former spelling. Fantasy or fantasy, so understood, presents numerous and varied images, often combining them into new forms with exceeding vividness, yet without any true constructive power, but with the mind adrift, blindly and passively following the laws of association, and with reason and will in torpor, the mental images being perhaps as varied and as vivid, but also as purposeless and unsystematized as the visual images in a kaleidoscope. Such fantasy, often loosely called imagination, appears in dreaming, reverie, somnambulism, and intoxication. Fantasy in ordinary usage simply denotes capricious or erratic fancy, as appears in the adjective fantastic. Imagination and fancy differ from fantasy in bringing the images and their combinations under the control of the will, imagination is the broader and higher term, including fancy. Imagination is the act or power of imaging or of reimaging objects of perception or thought, of combining the products of knowledge and modified, new, or ideal forms, the creative or constructive power of the mind, while fancy is the act or power of forming pleasing, graceful, whimsical, or odd mental images, or of combining them with little regard to rational processes of construction, imagination in its lower form. Both fancy and imagination recombine and modify mental images, either may work with the other's materials. Imagination may glorify the tiniest flower, fancy may play around a mountain or a star. The one great distinction between them is that fancy is superficial, while imagination is deep, essential, spiritual. Wordsworth, who was the first clearly to draw the distinction between the fancy and the imagination, states it as follows: to aggregate and to associate, to evoke and to combine, belong as well to the imagination as to the fancy, but either the materials evoked and combined are different, or they are brought together under a different law, and for a different purpose. Fancy does not require that the materials which she makes use of should be susceptible of changes in their constitution from her touch, and where they admit of modification, it is enough for her purpose if it be slight, limited, and evanescent. Directly the reverse of these are the desires and demands of the imagination. She recoils from everything but the plastic, the pliant, and the indefinite. She leaves it to fancy to describe Queen Mab as coming, in shape no bigger than an agate stone on the forefinger of an alderman. Having to speak of stature, she does not tell you that her gigantic angel was as tall as Pompey's pillar, much less that he was 12 cubits or 1200 cubits high, or that his dimensions equaled those of Teneriffe or Atlas, because these, and if they were 1,000,000 times as high, it would be the same, are bounded. The expression is, his stature reached the sky, the illimitable firmament. When the imagination frames a comparison, a sense of the truth of the likeness from the moment that it is perceived grows and continues to grow upon the mind, the resemblance depending less upon outline of form and feature than upon expression and effect, less upon casual and outstanding than upon inherent and internal properties. B. Poetical Works, Pref. To ed. of 1815, page 646, App. T and H 51. So far as actual images are concerned, both fancy and imagination are limited to the materials furnished by the external world. It is remarkable that among all the representations of gods or demigods, fiends and demons, griffins and chimeras, the human mind has never invented one organ or attribute that is not presented in human or animal life. The lion may have a human head and an eagle's wings and claws, but in the various features, individually, there is absolutely nothing new. But imagination can transcend the work of fancy, and compare an image drawn from the external world with some spiritual truth born in the mind itself, or infuse a series of images with such a spiritual truth, molding them as needed for its more vivid expression. The imagination modifies images, and gives unity to variety. It sees all things in one. There is the epic imagination, the perfection of which is in Milton, and the dramatic, of which Shakespeare is the absolute master. Coleridge Table Talk June 23, 34. Fancy keeps the material image prominent and clear, and works not only with it, but for it. Imagination always uses the material object as the minister of something greater than itself, and often almost loses the object in the spiritual idea with which she has associated it, and for which alone she values it. Fancy flits about the surface, and is airy and playful, sometimes petty, and sometimes false. Imagination goes to the heart of things, and is deep, earnest, serious, and seeks always and everywhere for essential truth. Fancy sets off, derogates, and decorates. Imagination transforms and exalts. Fancy delights and entertains, imagination moves and thrills. Imagination is not only poetic or literary, but scientific, philosophical, and practical. By imagination the architect sees the unity of a building not yet begun, and the inventor sees the unity and varied interactions of a machine never yet constructed, even a unity that no human eye ever can see, since when the machine is in actual motion, one part may hide the connecting parts, and yet all keep the unity of the inventor's thought. By imagination Newton sweeps sun, planets, and stars into unity with the earth and the apple that is drawn irresistibly to its surface, and sees them all within the circle of one grand law. Science, philosophy, and mechanical invention have little use for fancy, but the creative, penetrative power of imagination is to them the breath of life, and the condition of all advance and success. See also fancy, idea. B. The whole discussion from which the quotation is taken is worthy of, and will well repay, careful study. Start of a new word. Immediately. Synonyms: at once, instanter, presently, straightway, directly, instantly, right away, this instant, forthwith, now, right off, without delay. The strong and general human tendency to procrastination is shown in the progressive weakening of the various words in this group. Immediately primarily signifies without the intervention of anything as a medium, hence without the intervention of any, even the briefest, interval or lapse of time. By and by, which was once a synonym, has become an antonym of immediately, meaning at some, perhaps remote, future time. Directly, which once meant with no intervening time, now means after some little while. Presently no longer means in this very present, but before very long. Even immediately is sliding from its instantaneousness, so that we are fain to substitute at once, instantly, etc., when we would make promptness emphatic. Right away and right off are vigorous conversational expressions in the United States. Antonyms: after a while, by and by, hereafter, in the future, some time. Start of a new word. Immerse. Synonyms: bury, dip, douse, duck, emerge, plunge, sink, submerge. Dip is Saxon, while immerse is Latin for the same initial act. Dip is accordingly the more popular and commonplace, immerse the more elegant and dignified expression in many cases. To speak of baptism by immersion as dipping now seems rude, though entirely proper and usual in early English. Baptists now universally use the word immerse. To dip and to immerse alike signify to bury or submerge some object in a liquid, but dip implies that the object dipped is at once removed from the liquid, while immerse is wholly silent as to the removal. Immerse also suggests more absolute completeness of the action. One may dip his sleeve or dip a sponge in a liquid, if he but touches the edge. If he immerses it, he completely sinks it under, and covers it with the liquid. Submerge implies that the object cannot readily be removed, if at all, as a submerged wreck. To plunge is to immerse suddenly and violently, for which douse and duck are colloquial terms. Dip is used, also, unlike the other words, to denote the putting of a hollow vessel into a liquid in order to remove a portion of it. In this sense we say dip up, dip out. Compare synonyms for bury. Preposition: the object is immersed in water. Start of a new word. Imminent. Synonyms: impending, threatening. Imminent, from the Latin, with the sense of projecting over, signifies liable to happen at once, as some calamity, dangerous and close at hand. Impending, also from the Latin, with the sense of hanging over, is closely akin to imminent, but somewhat less emphatic. Imminent is more immediate, impending more remote, threatening more contingent. An impending evil is almost sure to happen at some uncertain time, perhaps very near. An imminent peril is one liable to befall very speedily. A threatening peril may be near or remote, but always with hope that it may be averted. Antonyms: chimerical, doubtful, problematical, unexpected, unlikely. Contingent, improbable. Start of a new word. Impediment. Synonyms: bar, clog, encumbrance, obstacle, barrier, difficulty, hindrance, obstruction. Difficulty makes an undertaking otherwise than easy. That which rests upon one as a burden is an encumbrance. An impediment is primarily something that checks the foot or in any way makes advance slow or difficult. An obstacle is something that stands across the way, an obstruction something that is built or placed across the way. An obstruction is always an obstacle, but an obstacle may not always be properly termed an obstruction. Boxes and bales placed on the sidewalk are obstructions to travel. an ice floe is an obstacle to navigation, and may become an obstruction if it closes an inlet or channel. A hindrance, kindred with hind, behind, is anything that makes one come behind or short of his purpose. An impediment may be either what one finds in his way or what he carries with him. Impedimenta was the Latin name for the baggage of a soldier or of an army. The tendency is to view an impediment as something constant or, at least for a time, continuous, as an impediment in one's speech. A difficulty or a hindrance may be either within one or without. A speaker may find difficulty in expressing himself, or difficulty in holding the attention of restless children. An encumbrance is always what one carries with him, an obstacle or an obstruction is always without. To a marching soldier the steepness of a mountain path is a difficulty, loose stones are impediments, a fence is an obstruction, a cliff or a boulder across the way is an obstacle, a knapsack is an encumbrance. Antonyms: advantage, aid, assistance, benefit, help, relief, succor. Start of a new word. Impudence. Synonyms: assurance, impertinence, intrusiveness, presumption, boldness, incivility, officiousness, rudeness, effrontery, insolence, pertness, sauciness. Forwardness: impertinence primarily denotes what does not pertain or belong to the occasion or the person, and hence comes to signify interference by word or act not consistent with the age, position, or relation of the person interfered with or of the one who interferes, especially, forward, presumptuous, or meddlesome speech. Impudence is shameless impertinence. What would be arrogance in a superior becomes impertinence or impudence in an inferior. Impertinence has less of intent and determination than impudence. We speak of thoughtless impertinence, shameless impudence. Insolence is literally that which is against custom, i.e., the violation of customary respect and courtesy. Officiousness is thrusting upon others unasked and undesired service, and is often as well meant as it is annoying. Rudeness is the behavior that might be expected from a thoroughly uncultured person, and may be either deliberate and insulting or unintentional and even unconscious. Compare arrogance, assurance, effrontery, pertness. Antonyms: bashfulness, diffidence, lowliness, modesty, coyness, humility, meekness, submissiveness. Prepositions: the impudence of or impudence from a subordinate to a superior. Start of a new word. Incongruous. Synonyms: absurd, ill-matched, inharmonious, conflicting, inapposite, irreconcilable, contradictory, inappropriate, mismatched, contrary, incommensurable, mismated, discordant, incompatible, repugnant, discrepant, inconsistent, unsuitable. Two or more things that do not fit well together, or are not adapted to each other, are said to be incongruous. A thing is said to be incongruous that is not adapted to the time, place, or occasion. The term is also applied to a thing made up of ill-assorted parts or inharmonious elements. Discordant is applied to all things that jar in association, like musical notes that are not in accord. Inharmonious has the same original sense, but is a milder term. Incompatible primarily signifies unable to sympathize or feel alike. Inconsistent means unable to stand together. Things are incompatible which cannot exist together in harmonious relations, and whose action when associated tends to ultimate extinction of one by the other. Inconsistent applies to things that cannot be made to agree in thought with each other, or with some standard of truth or right. Slavery and freedom are inconsistent with each other in theory, and incompatible in fact. Incongruous applies to relations, unsuitable to purpose or use. Two colors are incongruous which cannot be agreeably associated, either may be unsuitable for a person, a room, or an occasion. Incommensurable is a mathematical term, applying to two or more quantities that have no common measure or aliquot part. Antonyms: accordant, agreeing, compatible, consistent, harmonious, suitable. Preposition: the illustrations were incongruous with the theme. Start of a new word. Induction. Synonyms: deduction, inference. Deduction is reasoning from the general to the particular. Induction is reasoning from the particular to the general. Deduction proceeds from a general principle through an admitted instance to a conclusion. Induction, on the other hand, proceeds from a number of collated instances, through some attribute common to them all, to a general principle. The proof of an induction is by using its conclusion as the premise of a new deduction. Thus what is ordinarily known as scientific induction is a constant interchange of induction and deduction. In deduction, if the general rule is true, and the special case falls under the rule, the conclusion is certain. Induction can ordinarily give no more than a probable conclusion, because we can never be sure that we have collated all instances. An induction is of the nature of an inference, but while an inference may be partial and hasty, an induction is careful, and aims to be complete. Compare demonstration, hypothesis. Start of a new word. Industrious. Synonyms: active, busy, employed, occupied, assiduous, diligent, engaged, sedulous. Industrious signifies zealously or habitually applying oneself to any work or business. Busy applies to an activity which may be temporary, industrious to a habit of life. We say a man is busy just now, that is, occupied at the moment with something that takes his full attention. It would be ridiculous or satirical to say, he is industrious just now. But busy can be used in the sense of industrious, as when we say he is a busy man. Diligent indicates also a disposition, which is ordinarily habitual, and suggests more of heartiness and volition than industrious. We say one is a diligent, rather than an industrious, reader of the Bible. In the use of the nouns, we speak of plodding industry, but not of plodding diligence. Compare active, industry. Antonyms: see synonyms for idle. Start of a new word. Industry. Synonyms: application, diligence, labor, persistence, assiduity, effort, pains, sedulousness. Attention, exertion, patience, constancy, intentness, perseverance. Industry is the quality, action, or habit of earnest, steady, and continued attention or devotion to any useful or productive work or task, manual or mental. Assiduity, add to, and sedio, sit, as the etymology suggests, sits down to a task until it is done. Diligence, diligo, love, choose, invests more effort and exertion, with love of the work or deep interest in its accomplishment. Application, add to, and plico, fold, bends to its work and concentrates all one's powers upon it with utmost intensity. Hence, application can hardly be as unremitting as assiduity. Constancy is a steady devotion of heart and principle. Patience works on in spite of annoyances, perseverance overcomes hindrances and difficulties, persistence strives relentlessly against opposition. Persistence has very frequently an unfavorable meaning, implying that one persists in spite of considerations that should induce him to desist. Industry is diligence applied to some avocation, business, or profession. Labor and pains refer to the exertions of the worker and the tax upon him, while assiduity, perseverance, etc., refer to his continuance in the work. Antonyms: changeableness, idleness, inconstancy, neglect, remissness, fickleness, inattention, indolence, negligence, sloth. Start of a new word. Infinite. Synonyms: absolute, illimitable, limitless, unconditioned, boundless, immeasurable, measureless, unfathomable, countless, innumerable, numberless, unlimited, eternal, interminable, unbounded, unmeasured. Infinite, not, and finus, limit, signifies without bounds or limits in any way, and may be applied to space, time, quantity, or number. Countless, innumerable, and numberless, which should be the same as infinite, are in common usage vaguely employed to denote what it is difficult or practically impossible to count or number, though perhaps falling far short of infinite, as, countless leaves, the countless sands on the seashore, numberless battles, innumerable delays. So, too, boundless, illimitable, limitless, measureless, and unlimited are loosely used in reference to what has no apparent or readily determinable limits in space or time, as, we speak of the boundless ocean. Infinite space is without bounds, not only in fact, but in thought. infinite time is truly eternal. Compare synonyms for eternal. Antonyms: bounded, finite, measurable, restricted, small, brief, limited, moderate, shallow, transient, circumscribed, little, narrow, short, transitory. Evanescent. Start of a new word. Influence. Synonyms: actuate, draw, impel, induce, move, stir, compel, drive, incite, instigate, persuade, sway, dispose, excite, incline, lead, prompt, urge. To influence, in or into, and flow, is to affect, modify, or act upon by physical, mental, or moral power, especially in some gentle, subtle, and gradual way. As vegetation is influenced by light, everyone is influenced to some extent by public opinion. Influence is chiefly used of power acting from without, though it may be used of motives regarded as forces acting upon the will. Actuate refers solely to mental or moral power impelling one from within. One may influence, but cannot directly actuate another, but one may be actuated to cruelty by hatred which another's misrepresentation has aroused. Prompt and stir are words of mere suggestion towards some course of action. Dispose, draw, incline, influence, and lead refer to the use of mild means to awaken in another a purpose or disposition to act. To excite is to arouse one from lethargy or indifference to action. Incite and instigate, to spur or goad one to action, differ in the fact that incite may be to good, while instigate is always to evil. Compare abet. To urge and impel signify to produce strong excitation towards some act. We are urged from without, impelled from within. Drive and compel imply irresistible influence accomplishing its object. One may be driven either by his own passions or by external force or urgency. One is compelled only by some external power, as the owner was compelled by his misfortunes to sell his estate. Compare compel, drive. Antonyms: deter, dissuade, impede, prevent, restrain, retard. Discourage, hinder, inhibit. Prepositions: actuated to crime by revenge. Start of a new word. Inherent. Synonyms: congenital, indispensable, innate, native, essential, indwelling, inseparable, natural, immanent, infixed, internal, subjective. Inborn, ingrained, intrinsic, inbred, inhering, inwrought. Inherent signifies permanently united as an element or original quality, naturally existent or incorporated in something so as to have become an integral part. Immanent is a philosophic word, to denote that which dwells in or pervades any substance or spirit without necessarily being a part of it, and without reference to any working out. Compare subjective. That which is inherent is an inseparable part of that in which it inheres, and is usually thought of with reference to some outworking or effect, as an inherent difficulty. God is said to be immanent, not inherent, in the universe. Frequently intrinsic and inherent can be interchanged, but inherent applies to qualities, while intrinsic applies to essence, so that to speak of intrinsic excellence conveys higher praise than if we say inherent excellence. Inherent and intrinsic may be said of persons or things. Congenital, inborn, inbred, innate, apply to living beings. Congenital is frequent in medical and legal use with special application to defects, as congenital idiocy. Innate and inborn are almost identical, but innate is preferred in philosophic use, as when we speak of innate ideas. That which is inborn, congenital, or innate may be original with the individual, but that which is inbred is inherited. Ingrained signifies dyed in the grain, and denotes that which is deeply wrought into substance or character. Antonyms: accidental, extrinsic, outward, superficial, supplemental, casual, fortuitous, subsidiary, superfluous, transient, external, incidental, superadded, superimposed, unconnected. Start of a new word. Injury. Synonyms: blemish, disadvantage, hurt, loss, prejudice, damage, evil, impairment, mischief, wrong. Detriment, harm, injustice, outrage, injury, not, and juris, right, law, signifies primarily something done contrary to law or right, hence, something contrary to some standard of right or good, whatever reduces the value, utility, beauty, or desirableness of anything is an injury to that thing, of persons, whatever is so done as to operate adversely to one in his person, rights, property, or reputation is an injury. The word is especially used of whatever mars the integrity of the body or causes pain, as, when rescued from the wreck his injuries were found to be very slight. Injury is the general term including all the rest. Damage, damnum, loss, is that which occasions loss to the possessor, hence, any impairment of value, often with the suggestion of fault on the part of the one causing it. Damage reduces value, utility, or beauty. Detriment, deterere, to rub or wear away, is similar in meaning, but far milder. Detriment may affect value only, damage always affects real worth or utility. As a rule, the slightest use of an article by a purchaser operates to its detriment if again offered for sale, though the article may have received not the slightest damage. Damage is partial, loss is properly absolute as far as it is predicated at all. The loss of a ship implies that it has gone beyond recovery. The loss of the rudder is a damage to the ship, but since the loss of a part still leaves a part, we may speak of a partial or a total loss. Evil commonly suggests suffering or sin, or both, as, the evils of poverty, the social evil. Harm is closely synonymous with injury. It may apply to body, mind, or estate, but always affects real worth, while injury may concern only estimated value. A hurt is an injury that causes pain, physical or mental. A slight hurt may be no real harm. Mischief is disarrangement, trouble, or harm usually caused by some voluntary agent, with or without injurious intent. A child's thoughtless sport may do great mischief. Wrong is harm done with evil intent. An outrage combines insult and injury. Compare synonyms for blemish, criminal, injustice. Antonyms: advantage, benefit, boon, improvement, service, amelioration, blessing, help, remedy, utility. Prepositions: the injury of the cause, an injury to the structure, injury by fire, by or from collision, interference, etc. Start of a new word. Injustice. Synonyms: grievance, injury, unfairness, unrighteousness, wrong. Iniquity. Injustice is a violation or denial of justice, an act or omission that is contrary to equity or justice, as, the injustice of unequal taxes. In legal usage, a wrong involves injury to person, property, or reputation, as the result of evil intent. Injustice applies to civil damage or loss, not necessarily involving injury to person or property, as by misrepresentation of goods which does not amount to a legal warranty. In popular usage, injustice may involve no direct injury to person, property, interest, or character, and no harmful intent, while wrong always involves both. One who attributes another's truly generous act to a selfish motive does him an injustice. Iniquity, in the original sense, is a want of or a deviation from equity, but it is now applied in the widest sense to any form of ill-doing. Compare synonyms for criminal, sin. Antonyms: equity, faithfulness, impartiality, lawfulness, righteousness, fairness, honesty, integrity, rectitude, uprightness. Fair play, honor, justice, right. Start of a new word. Innocent. Synonyms: blameless, guiltless, inoffensive, spotless, clean, harmless, pure, stainless, clear, immaculate, right, upright, faultless, innocuous, righteous, virtuous. Guileless, innoxious, sinless, innocent, in the full sense, signifies not tainted with sin, not having done wrong or violated legal or moral precept or duty, as, an innocent babe. Innocent is a negative word, expressing less than righteous, upright, or virtuous, which imply knowledge of good and evil, with free choice of the good. A little child or a lamb is innocent, a tried and faithful man is righteous, upright, virtuous. Immaculate, pure, and sinless may be used either of one who has never known the possibility of evil or of one who has perfectly and triumphantly resisted it. Innocent is used of inanimate substances in the sense of harmless, as an innocent remedy, that is, one not dangerous, even if not helpful. Innocent, in a specific case, signifies free from the guilt of a particular act, even though the total character may be very evil, as, the thief was found to be innocent of the murder. See candid, pure. Antonyms, compare synonyms for criminal. Start of a new word. Inquisitive. Synonyms, curious, meddlesome, peeping, scrutinizing, inquiring, meddling, prying, searching. Intrusive. An inquisitive person is one who is bent on finding out all that can be found out by inquiry, especially of little and personal matters, and hence is generally meddlesome and prying. Inquisitive may be used in a good sense, though in such connection inquiring is to be preferred, as an inquiring mind. As applied to a state of mind, curious denotes a keen and rather pleasurable desire to know fully something to which one's attention has been called, but without the active tendency that inquisitive implies. A well-bred person may be curious to know, but will not be inquisitive in trying to ascertain what is of interest in the affairs of another. Antonyms, apathetic, heedless, indifferent, unconcerned, uninterested. Careless, inattentive. Prepositions, inquisitive about, concerning, in regard to, regarding trifles. Start of a new word. Insanity. Synonyms, aberration, delirium, frenzy, madness, alienation, dementia, hallucination, mania, craziness, derangement, lunacy, monomania. Of these terms, insanity is the most exact and comprehensive, including in its widest sense all morbid conditions of mind due to diseased action of the brain or nervous system, but in its more frequent restricted use applied to those forms in which the mental disorder is persistent, as distinguished from those in which it is temporary or transient. Craziness is a vague popular term for any sort of disordered mental action, or for conduct suggesting it. Lunacy originally denoted intermittent insanity, supposed to be dependent on the changes of the moon. Luna. The term is now applied in general and legal use to any form of mental unsoundness except idiocy. Madness is the old popular term, now less common, for insanity in its widest sense, but with suggestion of excitement, akin to mania. In the derived sense, lunacy denotes what is insanely foolish, madness what is insanely desperate. Derangement is a common euphemism for insanity. Delirium is always temporary, and is specifically the insanity of disease, as in acute fevers. Dementia is a general weakening of the mental powers. The word is specifically applied to senile insanity, dotage. Aberration is eccentricity of mental action due to an abnormal state of the perceptive faculties, and is manifested by error in perceptions and rambling thought. Hallucination is the apparent perception of that which does not exist or is not present to the senses, as the seeing of specters or of reptiles in delirium tremens. Monomania is mental derangement as to one subject or object. Frenzy and mania are forms of raving and furious insanity. Compare synonyms for delusion, idiocy. Antonyms, clearness, good sense, lucidity, rationality, sanity. Start of a new word. Interpose. Synonyms, arbitrate, intercept, intermeddle, meddle, intercede, interfere, interrupt, mediate. To interpose is to place or come between other things or persons, usually as a means of obstruction or prevention of some effect or result that would otherwise occur, or be expected to take place. Intercede and interpose are used in a good sense, intermeddle always in a bad sense, and interfere frequently so. To intercede is to come between persons who are at variance, and plead with the stronger in behalf of the weaker. One may interpose with authority, he intercedes by petition. To intermeddle is to thrust oneself into the concerns of others with a petty officiousness. Meddling commonly arises from idle curiosity. Every fool will be meddling. Provxx. 3. To interfere is to intrude into others' affairs with more serious purpose, with or without acknowledged right or propriety. Intercept is applied to an object that may be seized or stopped while in transit, as, to intercept a letter or a messenger. Interrupt is applied to an action which might or should be continuous, but is broken in upon, el romper, to break, by some disturbing power, as, the conversation was interrupted. One who arbitrates or mediates must do so by the request or at least with the consent of the contending parties. The other words of the group imply that he steps in of his own accord. Antonyms: avoid, keep aloof, keep out, retire, stand back, hold aloof, keep away, let alone, stand aside, stand off, hold off, keep clear, let be, stand away, withdraw. Prepositions: interpose between the combatants, in the matter. Start of a new word. Involve. Synonyms: complicate, embroil, implicate, include, embarrass, entangle, imply, overwhelm. To involve, in, and volvo, roll, is to roll or wind up with or in so as to combine inextricably or inseparably, or nearly so, as, the nation is involved in war, the bookkeeper's accounts, or the writer's sentences are involved. Involve is a stronger word than implicate, denoting more complete entanglement. As applied to persons, implicate is always used in an unfavorable sense, and involve ordinarily so, but implicate applies only to that which is wrong, while involve is more commonly used of that which is unfortunate. One is implicated in a crime, involved in embarrassments, misfortunes, or perplexities. As regards logical connection, that which is included is usually expressly stated, that which is implied is not stated, but is naturally to be inferred, that which is involved is necessarily to be inferred, as, a slate roof is included in the contract, that the roof shall be watertight is implied, the contrary supposition involves an absurdity. See complex. Antonyms: disconnect, distinguish, explicate, extricate, remove, separate. Disentangle. Start of a new word. Journey. Synonyms: excursion, pilgrimage, transit, trip, expedition, tour, travel, voyage. A journey, journey, from el diurnus, daily, was primarily a day's work, hence, a movement from place to place within one day, which we now describe as a day's journey. In its extended modern use, a journey is a direct going from a starting point to a destination, ordinarily over a considerable distance. We speak of a day's journey, or the journey of life. Travel is a passing from place to place, not necessarily in a direct line or with fixed destination. A journey through Europe would be a passage to some destination beyond or at the farther boundary. Travel in Europe may be in no direct course, but may include many journeys in different directions. A voyage, which was formerly a journey of any kind, is now a going to a considerable distance by water, especially by sea, as a voyage to India. A trip is a short and direct journey. A tour is a journey that returns to the starting point, generally over a considerable distance, as a bridal tour or business tour. An excursion is a brief tour or journey, taken for pleasure, often by many persons at once, as an excursion to Chautauqua. Passage is a general word for a journey by any conveyance, especially by water, as a rough passage across the Atlantic. Transit, literally the act of passing over or through, is used specifically of the conveyance of passengers or merchandise. Rapid transit is demanded for suburban residents or perishable goods. Pilgrimage, once always of a sacred character, retains in derived uses something of that sense, as a pilgrimage to Stratford-on-Avon. Prepositions: a journey from Naples to Rome, through Mexico, across the continent, over the sea, a journey into Asia, among savages, by land, by rail, for health, on foot, on the cars, etc. Start of a new word. Judge. Synonyms: arbiter, arbitrator, justice, referee, umpire. A judge, in the legal sense, is a judicial officer appointed or elected to preside in courts of law, and to decide legal questions duly brought before him. The name is sometimes given to other legally constituted officers, as the judges of election. In other relations, any person duly appointed to pass upon the merits of contestants or of competing articles may be called a judge, as the judges at an agricultural fair, or at a racetrack. In the widest sense, any person who has good capacity for judging is called a judge, as a person is said to be a judge of pictures, or a good judge of a horse, etc. In most games the judge is called an umpire, as the umpire of a game of ball or cricket. A referee is appointed by a court to decide disputed matters between litigants. An arbitrator is chosen by the contending parties to decide matters in dispute without action by a court. In certain cases an umpire is appointed by a court to decide where arbitrators disagree. Arbiter, with its suggestion of final and absolute decision, has come to be used only in a high or sacred sense, as, war must now be the arbiter, the supreme arbiter of our destinies. The judges of certain courts, as the United States Supreme Court, are technically known as justices. Start of a new word. Justice. Synonyms: equity, impartiality, legality, rightfulness, fairness, integrity, rectitude, truth, fair play, justness, right, uprightness, faithfulness, law, righteousness, virtue. Honor, lawfulness. In its governmental relations, human or divine, justice is the giving to every person exactly what he deserves, not necessarily involving any consideration of what any other may deserve. Equity, the quality of being equal, is giving every one as much advantage, privilege, or consideration as is given to any other. It is that which is equally right or just to all concerned. Equity is equal justice and is thus a close synonym for fairness and impartiality, but it has a philosophical and legal precision that those words have not. In legal proceedings, cases arise for which the law has not adequately provided, or in which general provisions, just in the main, would work individual hardship. The system of equity, devised to supply the insufficiencies of law, deals with cases to which the law by reason of its universality cannot apply. Equity, then, is the soul and spirit of all law. Positive law is construed and rational law is made by it. Blackstone Book 3, Chapter 27, page 429. In personal and social relations, justice is the rendering to every one what is due or merited, whether in act, word, or thought. In matters of reasoning, or literary work of any kind, justice is close, faithful, unprejudiced, and unbiased adherence to essential truth or fact. We speak of the justice of a statement, or of doing justice to a subject. Integrity, rectitude, right, righteousness and virtue denote conformity of personal conduct to the moral law, and thus necessarily include justice, which is giving others that which is their due. Lawfulness is an ambiguous word, meaning in its narrower sense mere legality, which may be very far from justice, but in its higher sense signifying accordance with the supreme law of right, and thus including perfect justice. Justness refers rather to logical relations than to practical matters, as, we speak of the justness of a statement or of a criticism. See Judge, N. Antonyms: dishonesty, inequity, partiality, unlawfulness, untruth, favoritism, injustice, unfairness, unreasonableness, wrong. Prepositions: the justice of the king, to or for the oppressed. Start of a new word. Keep. Synonyms: carry, defend, hold, preserve, retain, carry on, detain, maintain, protect, support, celebrate, fulfill, obey, refrain, sustain, conduct, guard, observe, restrain, withhold. Keep, signifying generally to have and retain in possession, is the terse, strong Saxon term for many acts which are more exactly discriminated by other words. We keep, observe, or celebrate a festival. We keep or hold a prisoner in custody. We keep or preserve silence, keep the peace, preserve order, preserve being the more formal word. We keep or maintain a horse, a servant, etc. A man supports his family. We keep or obey a commandment, keep or fulfill a promise. In the expressions to keep a secret, keep one's own counsel, keep faith, or keep the faith, such words as preserve or maintain could not be substituted without loss. A person keeps a shop or store, conducts or carries on a business, he keeps or carries a certain line of goods. We may keep or restrain one from folly, crime, or violence. We keep from or refrain from evil, ourselves. Keep in the sense of guard or defend implies that the defense is effectual. Compare celebrate, restrain. Prepositions: keep in hand, in mind, in or within the house, from evil, out of mischief, keep to the subject, keep for a person, an occasion, etc. Start of a new word. Kill. Synonyms: assassinate, dispatch, massacre, put to death, slay. Butcher, execute, murder, slaughter. To kill is simply to deprive of life, human, animal, or vegetable, with no suggestion of how or why. Assassinate, execute, murder, apply only to the taking of human life. To murder is to kill with premeditation and malicious intent. To execute is to kill in fulfillment of a legal sentence. To assassinate is to kill by assault. This word is chiefly applied to the killing of public or eminent persons through alleged political motives, whether secretly or openly. To slay is to kill by a blow, or by a weapon. Butcher and slaughter apply primarily to the killing of cattle. Massacre is applied primarily and almost exclusively to human beings, signifying to kill them indiscriminately in large numbers. To massacre is said when there is no chance of successful resistance. To butcher when the killing is especially brutal. Soldiers mown down in a hopeless charge are said to be slaughtered when no brutality on the enemy's part is implied. To dispatch is to kill swiftly and in general quietly, always with intention, with or without right. Prepositions: to kill with or by sword, famine, pestilence, care, grief, etc., killed for his money, by a robber, with a dagger. Start of a new word. Kin. Synonyms: affinity, blood, descent, kind, race, alliance, consanguinity, family, kindred, relationship. Birth: kind is broader than kin, denoting the most general relationship, as of the whole human species and mankind, humankind, etc. Kin and kindred denote direct relationship that can be traced through either blood or marriage, preferably the former. Either of these words may signify collectively all persons of the same blood or members of the same family, relatives, or relations. Affinity is relationship by marriage, consanguinity is relationship by blood. There are no true antonyms of kin or kindred, except those made by negatives, since strangers, aliens, foreigners, and foes may still be kin or kindred. Start of a new word. Knowledge. Synonyms: acquaintance, erudition, learning, recognition, apprehension, experience, light, scholarship, cognition, information, lore, science, cognizance, intelligence, perception, wisdom. Comprehension, intuition. Knowledge is all that the mind knows, from whatever source derived or obtained, or by whatever process, the aggregate of facts, truths, or principles acquired or retained by the mind, including alike the intuitions native to the mind and all that has been learned respecting phenomena, causes, laws, principles, literature, etc. There is a tendency to regard knowledge as accurate and systematic, and to a certain degree complete. Information is knowledge of fact, real or supposed, derived from persons, books, or observation, and is regarded as casual and haphazard. We say of a studious man that he has a great store of knowledge, or of an intelligent man of the world, that he has a fund of varied information. Lore is used only in poetic or elevated style, for accumulated knowledge, as of a people or age, or in a more limited sense for learning or erudition. We speak of perception of external objects, apprehension of intellectual truth. Simple perception gives a limited knowledge of external objects, merely as such. The cognition of the same objects is a knowledge of them in some relation. Cognizance is the formal or official recognition of something as an object of knowledge. We take cognizance of it. Intuition is primary knowledge antecedent to all teaching or reasoning. Experience is knowledge that has entered directly into one's own life, as a child's experience that fire will burn. Learning is much higher than information, being preeminently wide and systematic knowledge, the result of long, assiduous study. Erudition is recondite learning secured only by extraordinary industry, opportunity, and ability. Compare acquaintance, education, science, wisdom. Antonyms: ignorance, inexperience, misconception, rudeness, illiteracy, misapprehension, misunderstanding, unfamiliarity. Start of a new word. Language. Synonyms: barbarism, expression, patois, vernacular, dialect, idiom, speech, vocabulary. Diction, mother tongue, tongue, language, language lingua, the tongue, signified originally expression of thought by spoken words, but now in its widest sense it signifies expression of thought by any means, as, the language of the eyes, the language of flowers. As regards the use of words, language in its broadest sense denotes all the uttered sounds and their combinations into words and sentences that human beings employ for the communication of thought, and, in a more limited sense, the words or combinations forming a means of communication among the members of a single nation, people, or race. Speech involves always the power of articulate utterance. We can speak of the language of animals, but not of their speech. A tongue is the speech or language of some one people, country, or race. A dialect is a special mode of speaking, a language peculiar to some locality or class, not recognized as in accordance with the best usage. A barbarism is a perversion of a language by ignorant foreigners, or some usage akin to that. Idiom refers to the construction of phrases and sentences, and the way of forming or using words. It is the peculiar mold in which each language casts its thought. The great difficulty of translation is to give the thought expressed in one language in the idiom of another. A dialect may be used by the highest as well as the lowest within its range. A patois is distinctly illiterate, belonging to the lower classes. Those who speak a patois understand the cultured form of their own language, but speak only the degraded form, as in the case of the Italian Lazzaroni or the former Negro slaves in the United States. Vernacular, from the Latin, has the same general sense as the Saxon mother tongue, of one's native language, or that of a people, as, the scriptures were translated into the vernacular. Compare diction. Start of a new word. Large. Synonyms: abundant, coarse, gigantic, long, ample, colossal, grand, massive, big, commodious, great, spacious, broad, considerable, huge, vast, bulky, enormous, immense, wide. Capacious, extensive. Large denotes extension in more than one direction, and beyond the average of the class to which the object belongs. We speak of a large surface or a large solid, but of a long line, a large field, a large room, a large apple, etc. A large man is a man of more than ordinary size. A great man is a man of remarkable mental power. Big is a more emphatic word than large, but of less dignity. We do not say that George Washington was a big man. Antonyms: brief, limited, minute, scanty, small, diminutive, little, narrow, short, tiny, inconsiderable, mean, paltry, slender, trifling, infinitesimal, microscopic, petty, slight, trivial, insignificant. Start of a new word. Law. Synonyms: canon, economy, legislation, principle, code, edict, mandate, regulation, command, enactment, order, rule, commandment, formula, ordinance, statute. Decree, jurisprudence, polity. Law, in its ideal, is the statement of a principle of right and mandatory form, by competent authority, with adequate penalty for disobedience. In common use, the term is applied to any legislative act, however imperfect or unjust. Command and commandment are personal and particular, as, the commands of a parent, the 10 Commandments. An edict is the act of an absolute sovereign or other authority. We speak of the edict of an emperor, the decree of a court. A mandate is specific. For an occasion or a purpose, a superior court issues its mandate to an inferior court to send up its records. Statute is the recognized legal term for a specific law. Enactment is the more vague and general expression. We speak of algebraic or chemical formulas, municipal ordinances, military orders, army regulations, ecclesiastical canons, the rules of a business house. Law is often used, also, for a recognized principle, whose violation is attended with injury or loss that acts like a penalty, as, the laws of business, the laws of nature. In more strictly scientific use, a natural law is simply a recognized system of sequences or relations, as, Kepler's laws of planetary distances. A code is a system of laws, Jurisprudence is the science of law, or a system of laws scientifically considered, classed, and interpreted. Legislation, primarily the act of legislating, denotes also the body of statutes enacted by a legislative body. An economy, oikonomia, primarily the management of a house, is any comprehensive system of administration, as domestic economy, but the word is extended to the administration or government of a state or people, signifying a body of laws and regulations, with the entire system, political or religious, especially the latter, of which they form a part, as the Code of Draco, Roman jurisprudence, British legislation, the Mosaic economy. Law is also used as a collective noun for a system of laws or recognized rules or regulations, including not only all special laws, but the principles on which they are based. The Mosaic economy is known also as the Mosaic law, and we speak of the English common law, or the law of nations. Polity, politia, from polis, a city, signifies the form, constitution, or method of government of a nation, state, church, or other institution. In usage it differs from economy as applying rather to the system, while economy applies especially to method, or to the system as administered. An economy might be termed a polity considered with a special reference to its practical administration, hence commonly with special reference to details or particulars, while polity has more reference to broad principles. Start of a new word. Liberty. Synonyms: emancipation, freedom, independence, license. In general terms, it may be said that freedom is absolute, liberty relative. Freedom is the absence of restraint, liberty is primarily the removal or avoidance of restraint. In its broadest sense, it is the state of being exempt from the domination of others or from restricting circumstances. Freedom and liberty are constantly interchanged. The slave is set at liberty, or gains his freedom, but freedom is the nobler word. Independence is said of states or nations, freedom and liberty of individuals. The independence of the United States did not secure liberty or freedom to its slaves. Liberty keeps quite strictly to the thought of being clear of restraint or compulsion. Freedom takes a wider range, applying to other oppressive influences. Thus, we speak of freedom from annoyance or intrusion. License is, in its limited sense, a permission or privilege granted by adequate authority, a bounded liberty. In the wider sense, license is an ignoring and defiance of all that should restrain, and a reckless doing of all that individual caprice or passion may choose to do, a base and dangerous counterfeit of freedom. Compare: allow, permission. Antonyms: captivity, imprisonment, oppression, slavery, compulsion, necessity, serfdom, superstition, constraint, obligation, servitude, thraldom. Start of a new word. Light. Synonyms: blaze, gleam, glow, shimmer, flame, gleaming, illumination, shine, flare, glimmer, incandescence, shining, flash, glistening, luster, sparkle, flicker, glistering, scintillation, twinkle, glare, glitter, sheen, twinkling. Light, strictly denoting a form of radiant energy, is used as a general term for any luminous effect discernible by the eye, from the faintest phosphorescence to the blaze of the noonday sun. A flame is both hot and luminous. If it contains few solid particles it will yield little light, though it may afford intense heat, as in the case of a hydrogen flame. A blaze is an extensive, brilliant flame. A flare is a wavering flame or blaze. A flash is a light that appears and disappears in an instant, as a flash of lightning, the flash of gunpowder. The glare and glow are steady, the glare painfully bright, the glow subdued, as the glare of torches, the glow of dying embers. Shine and shining refer to a steady or continuous emission of light. Sheen is a faint shining, usually by reflection. Glimmer, glitter, and shimmer denote wavering light. We speak of the glimmer of distant lamps through the mist, of the shimmer of waves in sunlight or moonlight. A gleam is not wavering, but transient or intermittent. A sudden gleam of light came through the half-open door. A glitter is a hard light, as the glitter of burnished arms. A sparkle is a sudden light, as of sparks thrown out. Scintillation is the more exact and scientific term for the actual emission of sparks, also the figurative term for what suggests such emission, as scintillations of wit or of genius. Twinkle and twinkling are used of the intermittent light of the fixed stars. Glistening is a shining as from a wet surface. Illumination is a widespread, brilliant light, as when all the windows of a house or of a street are lighted. The light of incandescence is intense and white like that from metal at a white heat. Antonyms: blackness, darkness, dusk, gloominess, shade, dark, dimness, gloom, obscurity, shadow. Start of a new word. Likely. Synonyms: apt, conceivable, liable, probable, credible, conjectural, presumable, reasonable. Apt implies a natural fitness or tendency. An impetuous person is apt to speak hastily. Liable refers to a contingency regarded as unfavorable, as, the ship was liable to founder at any moment. Likely refers to a contingent event regarded as very probable, and usually, though not always, favorable, as, an industrious worker is likely to succeed. Credible signifies readily to be believed, as, a credible narrative. Likely in such connection is used ironically to signify the reverse, as, a likely story. A thing is conceivable of which the mind can entertain the possibility. A thing is conjectural which is conjectured as possible or probable without other support than a conjecture, or tentative judgment. A thing is presumable which, from what is antecedently known, may be taken for granted in advance of proof. Reasonable in this connection signifies such as the reason can be satisfied with, independently of external grounds for belief or disbelief, as, that seems a reasonable supposition. Compare apparent. Antonyms: doubtful, improbable, questionable, unreasonable. Dubious, incredible, unlikely. Start of a new word. Listen. Synonyms: attend, hark, hearken, hear, heed, list. Between listen and hear is a difference like that between the words look and see. Compare synonyms for look. To hear is simply to become conscious of sound, to listen is to make a conscious effort or endeavor to hear. We may hear without listening, as words suddenly uttered in an adjoining room, or we may listen without hearing, as to a distant speaker. In listening the ear is intent upon the sound, in attending the mind is intent upon the thought, though listening implies some attention to the meaning or import of the sound. To heed is not only to attend, but to remember and observe. Hearken is nearly obsolete. Antonyms: be deaf to, ignore, neglect, scorn, slight. Prepositions: we listen for what we expect or desire to hear, we listen to what we actually do hear, listen for a step, a signal, a train, listen to the debate. Start of a new word. Literature. Synonyms: belles lettres, literary productions, publications, books, literary works, writings. Literature is collective, including in the most general sense all the written or printed productions of the human mind in all lands and ages, or in a more limited sense, referring to all that has been published in some land or age, or in some department of human knowledge, as, the literature of Greece, the literature of the Augustan age, the literature of politics or of art. Literature, used absolutely, denotes what has been called polite literature or belles lettres, i.e., the works collectively that embody taste, feeling, loftiness of thought, and purity and beauty of style, as poetry, history, fiction, and dramatic compositions, including also much of philosophical writing, as the Republic of Plato, and oratorical productions, as the orations of Demosthenes. In the broad sense, we can speak of the literature of science. In the narrower sense, we speak of literature and science as distinct departments of knowledge. Literature is also used to signify literary pursuits or occupations, as, to devote one's life to literature. Compare knowledge, science. Start of a new word. Load, and synonyms: burden, charge, encumbrance, incubus, pack, cargo, clog, freight, lading, weight. A burden, from the Anglo-Saxon burthen, from the verb bearen, bear, is what one has to bear, and the word is used always of that which is borne by a living agent. A load, from the Anglo-Saxon l, equals a, d, away, course, carrying, or carriage, is what is laid upon a person, animal, or vehicle for conveyance, or what is customarily so imposed, as a 2-horse load. Weight measures the pressure due to gravity. The same weight that one finds a moderate load when in his full strength becomes a heavy burden in weariness or weakness. A ship's load is called distinctively a cargo, or it may be known as freight or lading. Freight denotes merchandise in or for transportation and is used largely of transportation or of merchandise transported by rail, which is, in commercial language, said to be shipped. A load to be fastened upon a horse or mule is called a pack, and the animal is known as a pack horse or pack mule. Start of a new word. Lock. Synonyms: bar, catch, fastening, hook, bolt, clasp, hasp, latch. A bar is a piece of wood or metal, usually of considerable size, by which an opening is obstructed, a door held fast, etc. A bar may be movable or permanent. A bolt is a movable rod or pin of metal, sliding in a socket and adapted for securing a door or window. A lock is an arrangement by which an enclosed bolt is shot forward or backward by a key, or other device. The bolt is the essential part of the lock. A latch or catch is an accessible fastening designed to be easily movable, and simply to secure against accidental opening of the door, cover, etc. A hasp is a metallic strap that fits over a staple, calculated to be secured by a padlock. A simple hook that fits into a staple is also called a hasp. A clasp is a fastening that can be sprung into place, to draw and hold the parts of some enclosing object firmly together, as the clasp of a book. Start of a new word. Look. Synonyms: behold, discern, inspect, see, view, contemplate, gaze, regard, stare, watch. Descry, glance, scan, survey. To see is simply to become conscious of an object of vision. To look is to make a conscious and direct endeavor to see. To behold is to fix the sight and the mind with distinctness and consideration upon something that has come to be clearly before the eyes. We may look without seeing, as in pitch darkness, and we may see without looking, as in case of a flash of lightning. To gaze is to look intently, long, and steadily upon an object. To glance is to look casually or momentarily. To stare is to look with a fixed intensity such as is the effect of surprise, alarm, or rudeness. To scan is to look at minutely, to note every visible feature. To inspect is to go below the surface, uncover, study item by item. View and survey are comprehensive, survey expressing the greater exactness of measurement or estimate. Watch brings in the element of time and often of wariness. We watch for a movement or change, a signal, the approach of an enemy, etc. Compare appear. Start of a new word. Love. Synonyms: affection, charity, friendship, regard, attachment, devotion, liking, tenderness. Attraction, fondness. Affection is kindly feeling, deep, tender, and constant, going out to some person or object, being less fervent and ardent than love, whether applied to persons or things. Love is an intense and absorbing emotion, drawing one toward a person or object and causing one to appreciate, delight in, and crave the presence or possession of the person or object loved, and to desire to please and benefit the person, or to advance the cause, truth, or other object of affection. It is the yearning or outgoing of soul towards something that is regarded as excellent, beautiful, or desirable. Love may be briefly defined as strong and absorbing affection for and attraction toward a person or object. Love may denote the sublimest and holiest spiritual affection, as when we are taught that God is love. Charity has so far swung aside from this original meaning that probably it never can be recalled. Compare benevolence. The Revised Version uses love in place of charity in 1 Cor 13, and elsewhere. Love is more intense, absorbing, and tender than friendship, more intense, impulsive, and perhaps passionate than affection. We speak of fervent love, but of deep or tender affection, or of close, firm, strong friendship. Love is used specifically for personal affection between the sexes in the highest sense, the love that normally leads to marriage, and subsists throughout all happy wedded life. Love can never properly denote mere animal passion, which is expressed by such words as appetite, desire, lust. One may properly be said to have love for animals, for inanimate objects, or for abstract qualities that enlist the affections, as we speak of love for a horse or a dog, for mountains, woods, ocean, or of love of nature, and love of virtue. Love of articles of food is better expressed by liking, as love, in its full sense, expresses something spiritual and reciprocal, such as can have no place in connection with objects that minister merely to the senses. Compare attachment, friendship. Antonyms, see synonyms for antipathy, enmity, hatred. Prepositions, love of country, for humanity, love to God and man. Start of a new word. Make. Synonyms, become, constrain, fabricate, manufacture, bring about, construct, fashion, occasion, bring into being, create, force, perform, bring to pass, do, frame, reach, cause, effect, get, render, compel, establish, make out, require, compose, execute, make up, shape. Constitute, make is essentially causative. To the idea of cause all its various senses may be traced, compare synonyms for cause. To make is to cause to exist, or to cause to exist in a certain form or in certain relations. The word thus includes the idea of create, as in Gen I, 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and, behold, it was very good. Make includes also the idea of compose, constitute, as, the parts make up the whole. Similarly, to cause a voluntary agent to do a certain act is to make him do it, or compel him to do it, compel fixing the attention more on the process, make on the accomplished fact. Compare compel, do, influence, make better, amend, make haste, quicken, make known, announce, avow, confess, make prisoner, arrest, make up, add, make void, cancel. Antonyms, see synonyms for abolish, break, demolish. Prepositions, make of, out of, or from certain materials, into a certain form, for a certain purpose or person, made with. Hands, by hand, made by a prisoner, with a jackknife. Start of a new word. Marriage. Synonyms, conjugal union, espousals, nuptials, spousals, wedding, espousal, matrimony, spousal, union, wedlock. Matrimony denotes the state of those who are united in the relation of husband and wife. Marriage denotes primarily the act of so uniting, but is extensively used for the state as well. Wedlock, a word of specific legal use, is the Saxon term for the state or relation denoted by matrimony. Wedding denotes the ceremony, with any attendant festivities, by which two persons are united as husband and wife, nuptials being the more formal and stately term to express the same idea. Antonyms, bachelorhood, celibacy, divorce, maidenhood, virginity, widowhood. Prepositions, marriage of or between two persons, of one person to or with another, among the Greeks. Start of a new word. Masculine. Synonyms, male, manful, manlike, manly, mannish, virile. We apply male to the sex, masculine to the qualities, especially to the stronger, hardier, and more imperious qualities that distinguish the male sex. As applied to women, masculine has often the depreciatory sense of unwomanly, rude, or harsh, as a masculine face or voice, or the like, though one may say in a commendatory way, she acted with masculine courage or decision. Manlike may mean only having the outward appearance or semblance of a man, or may be closely equivalent to manly. Manly refers to all the qualities and traits worthy of a man. Manful, especially to the valor and prowess that become a man. We speak of a manful struggle, manly decision. We say manly gentleness or tenderness. We could not say manful tenderness. Mannish is a depreciatory word referring to the mimicry or parade of some superficial qualities of manhood, as a mannish boy or woman. Masculine may apply to the distinctive qualities of the male sex at any age. Virile applies to the distinctive qualities of mature manhood only, as opposed not only to feminine or womanly but to childish, and is thus an emphatic word for sturdy, intrepid, etc. Antonyms, see synonyms for feminine. Start of a new word. massacre. Synonyms: butchery, carnage, havoc, slaughter. A massacre is the indiscriminate killing in numbers of the unresisting or defenseless. Butchery is the killing of men rudely and ruthlessly as cattle are killed in a shambles. Havoc may not be so complete as massacre, nor so coldly brutal as butchery, but is more widely spread and furious. It is destruction let loose, and may be applied to organizations, interests, etc., as well as to human life. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church, Acts 8:3. Carnage, Latin caro, carnis, flesh, refers to widely scattered or heaped up corpses of the slain. Slaughter is similar in meaning, but refers more to the process, as carnage does to the result. These two words only of the group may be used of great destruction of life in open and honorable battle, as when we say the enemy was repulsed with great slaughter, or the carnage was terrible. Start of a new word. Meddlesome. Synonyms: impertinent, intrusive, meddling, obtrusive, officious. The meddlesome person interferes unasked in the affairs of others. The intrusive person thrusts himself uninvited into their company or conversation. The obtrusive person thrusts himself or his opinions conceitedly and undesirably upon their notice. The officious person thrusts his services, unasked and undesired, upon others. Obtrusive is oftener applied to words, qualities, actions, etc., than to persons. Intrusive is used chiefly of persons, as is officious, though we speak of officious attentions, intrusive remarks. Meddlesome is used indifferently of persons, or of words, qualities, actions, etc. Compare inquisitive, interpose. Antonyms: modest, reserved, retiring, shy, unassuming, unobtrusive. Start of a new word. Melody. Synonyms: harmony, music, symphony, unison. Harmony is simultaneous, melody is successive. Harmony is the pleasing correspondence of two or more notes sounded at once, melody the pleasing succession of a number of notes continuously following one another. A melody may be wholly in one part, harmony must be of two or more parts. Accordant notes of different pitch sounded simultaneously produce harmony. Unison is the simultaneous sounding of two or more notes of the same pitch. When the pitch is the same, there may be unison between sounds of very different volume and quality, as a voice and a bell may sound in unison. Tones sounded at the interval of an octave are also said to be in unison, although this is not literally exact. This usage arises from the fact that bass and tenor voices in attempting to sound the same note as the soprano and alto will in fact sound a note an octave below. Music may denote the simplest melody or the most complex and perfect harmony. A symphony, apart from its technical orchestral sense, is any pleasing consonance of musical sounds, vocal or instrumental, as of many accordant voices or instruments. Start of a new word. Memory. Synonyms: recollection, reminiscence, retrospect, retrospection. Remembrance. Memory is the faculty by which knowledge is retained or recalled. In a more general sense, memory is a retention of knowledge within the grasp of the mind, while remembrance is the having what is known consciously before the mind. Remembrance may be voluntary or involuntary. A thing is brought to remembrance or we call it to remembrance. The same is true of memory. Recollection involves volition, the mind making a distinct effort to recall something, or fixing the attention actively upon it when recalled. Reminiscence is a half-dreamy memory of scenes or events long past. Retrospection is a distinct turning of the mind back upon the past, bringing long periods under survey. Retrospection is to reminiscence much what recollection is to remembrance. Antonyms: forgetfulness, oblivion, obliviousness, oversight, unconsciousness. Start of a new word. Mercy. Synonyms: benevolence, favor, kindness, mildness, benignity, forbearance, lenience, pardon, blessing, forgiveness, leniency, pity, clemency, gentleness, lenity, tenderness. Compassion, grace. Mercy is the exercise of less severity than one deserves, or in a more extended sense, the granting of kindness or favor beyond what one may rightly claim. Grace is favor, kindness, or blessing shown to the undeserving. Forgiveness, mercy, and pardon are exercised toward the ill-deserving. Pardon remits the outward penalty which the offender deserves. Forgiveness dismisses resentment or displeasure from the heart of the one offended. Mercy seeks the highest possible good of the offender. There may be mercy without pardon, as in the mitigation of sentence, or in all possible alleviation of necessary severity. There may be cases where pardon would not be mercy, since it would encourage to repetition of the offense, from which timely punishment might have saved. Mercy is also used in the wider sense of refraining from harshness or cruelty toward those who are in one's power without fault of their own, as, they besought the robber to have mercy. Clemency is a colder word than mercy, and without its religious associations, signifying mildness and moderation in the use of power where severity would have legal or military, rather than moral sanction, it often denotes a habitual mildness of disposition on the part of the powerful, and is matter rather of good nature or policy than of principle. Leniency or lenity denotes an easygoing avoidance of severity. These words are more general and less magisterial than clemency. We should speak of the leniency of a parent, the clemency of a conqueror. Compare pity. Antonyms: cruelty, implacability, punishment, rigor, sternness, hardness, justice, revenge, severity, vengeance. Harshness, penalty, prepositions. The mercy of God to or toward sinners, have mercy on or upon one. Start of a new word. Meter. Synonyms: euphony, measure, rhythm, verse. Euphony is agreeable linguistic sound, however produced. Meter, measure, and rhythm denote agreeable succession of sounds in the utterance of connected words. Euphony may apply to a single word or even a single syllable. The other words apply to lines, sentences, paragraphs, etc. Rhythm and meter may be produced by accent only, as in English, or by accent and quantity combined, as in Greek or Italian. Rhythm or measure may apply either to prose or to poetry, or to music, dancing, etc. Meter is more precise than rhythm, applies only to poetry, and denotes a measured rhythm with regular divisions into verses, stanzas, strophes, etc. A verse is strictly a metrical line, but the word is often used as synonymous with stanza. Verse, in the general sense, denotes metrical writing without reference to the thought involved, as prose and verse. Compare melody, poetry. Start of a new word. Mind. Synonyms: brain, instinct, reason, spirit, consciousness, intellect, sense, thought, disposition, intelligence, soul, understanding. Mind, in a general sense, includes all the powers of sentient being apart from the physical factors in bodily faculties and activities. In a limited sense, mind is nearly synonymous with intellect, but includes disposition, or the tendency toward action, as appears in the phrase, to have a mind to work. As the seat of mental activity, brain, colloquially brains, is often used as a synonym for mind, intellect, intelligence. Thought, the act, process, or power of thinking, is often used to denote the thinking faculty, and especially the reason. The instinct of animals is now held by many philosophers to be of the same nature as the intellect of man, but inferior and limited, yet the apparent difference is very great. An instinct is a propensity prior to experience and independent of instruction. Paley Natural Philosophy ch. 18. In this sense we speak of human instincts, thus denoting tendencies independent of reasoning or instruction. The soul includes the intellect, sensibilities, and will, beyond what is expressed by the word mind. The soul denotes especially the moral, the immortal nature. We say of a dead body, the soul, not the mind, has fled. Spirit is used especially in contradistinction from matter. It may in many cases be substituted for soul, but soul has commonly a fuller and more determinate meaning. We can conceive of spirits as having no moral nature. The fairies, elves, and brownies of mythology might be termed spirits, but not souls. In the figurative sense, spirit denotes animation, excitability, perhaps impatience, as, a lad of spirit, he sang with spirit, he replied with spirit. Soul denotes energy and depth of feeling, as when we speak of soulful eyes, or it may denote the very life of anything, as, the hidden soul of harmony, Milton L'Allegro L. 144. Sense may be an antonym of intellect, as when we speak of the sense of hearing, but sense is used also as denoting clear mental action, good judgment, acumen, as, he is a man of sense, or, he showed good sense, even in its material signification, must be reckoned among the activities of mind, though dependent on bodily functions. The mind, not the eye, really sees, the mind, not the ear, really hears. Consciousness includes all that a sentient being perceives, knows, thinks, or feels, from whatever source arising and of whatever character, kind, or degree, whether with or without distinct thinking, feeling, or willing. We speak of the consciousness of the brute, of the savage, or of the sage. The intellect is that assemblage of faculties which is concerned with knowledge, as distinguished from emotion and volition. Understanding is the Saxon word of the same general import, but is chiefly used of the reasoning powers, the understanding, which Sir William Hamilton has called the faculty of relations and comparisons, is distinguished by many philosophers from reason in that reason is the faculty of the higher cognitions or a priori truth. Antonyms: body, brawn, brute force, material substance, matter. Start of a new word. Minute. Synonyms: circumstantial, diminutive, little, slender, comminuted, exact, particular, small, critical, fine, precise, tiny. Detailed, that is minute, which is of exceedingly limited dimensions, as a grain of dust, or which attends to matters of exceedingly slight amount or apparent importance, as, a minute account, minute observation. That which is broken up into minute particles is said to be comminuted. Things may be termed fine which would not be termed comminuted, as, fine sand, fine gravel, but, in using the adverb, we say a substance is finely comminuted referring more to the process, fine to the result. An account extended to very minute particulars is circumstantial, detailed, particular. An examination so extended is critical, exact, precise. Compare fine. Antonyms: see synonyms for large. Start of a new word. Misfortune. Synonyms: adversity, disappointment, ill fortune, ruin, affliction, disaster, ill luck, sorrow, bereavement, distress, misadventure, stroke, blow, failure, mischance, trial, calamity, hardship, misery, tribulation, chastening, harm, mishap, trouble, chastisement, ill, reverse, visitation. Misfortune is adverse fortune or any instance thereof, any untoward event, usually of lingering character or consequences, and such as the sufferer is not deemed directly responsible for, as, he had the misfortune to be born blind. Any considerable disappointment, failure, or misfortune, as regards outward circumstances, as loss of fortune, position, and the like, when long continued or attended with enduring consequences, constitutes adversity. For the loss of friends by death we commonly use affliction or bereavement. Calamity and disaster are used of sudden and severe misfortunes, often overwhelming, ill fortune and ill luck, of lighter troubles and failures. We speak of the misery of the poor, the hardships of the soldier. Affliction, chastening, trial, and tribulation have all an especially religious bearing, suggesting some disciplinary purpose of God with beneficent design. Affliction may be keen and bitter, but brief. Tribulation is long and wearing. We speak of an affliction, but rarely of a tribulation, since tribulation is viewed as a continuous process, which may endure for years or for a lifetime, but we speak of our daily trials. Compare catastrophe. Antonyms: blessing, consolation, gratification, pleasure, success, boon, good fortune, happiness, prosperity, triumph. Comfort, good luck, joy, relief. Start of a new word. Mob. Synonyms: canaille, dregs of the people, masses, rabble, crowd, lower classes, populace, the vulgar. The populace are poor and ignorant, but may be law-abiding. A mob is disorderly and lawless, but may be rich and influential. The rabble is despicable, worthless, purposeless. A mob may have effective desperate purpose. A crowd may be drawn by mere curiosity, some strong, pervading excitement is needed to make it a mob. Compare people. Start of a new word. Model. Synonyms: archetype, facsimile, original, representation, copy, image, pattern, standard, design, imitation, prototype, type. Example: mold. A pattern is always, in modern use, that which is to be copied. A model may be either the thing to be copied or the copy that has been made from it, as, the models in the patent office. A pattern is commonly superficial, a model is usually in relief. A pattern must be closely followed in its minutest particulars by a faithful copyist. A model may allow a great degree of freedom. A sculptor may idealize his living model. His workman must exactly copy in marble or metal the model he has made in clay. Compare example: idea, ideal. Start of a new word. Modesty. Synonyms: backwardness, constraint, reserve, timidity, bashfulness, coyness, shyness, unobtrusiveness. Coldness, diffidence. Bashfulness is a shrinking from notice without assignable reason. Coyness is a half encouragement, half avoidance of offered attention, and may be real or affected. Diffidence is self-distrust. Modesty, a humble estimate of oneself in comparison with others, or with the demands of some undertaking. Modesty has also the specific meaning of a sensitive shrinking from anything indelicate. Shyness is a tendency to shrink from observation. Timidity, a distinct fear of criticism, error, or failure. Reserve is the holding oneself aloof from others, or holding back one's feelings from expression, or one's affairs from communication to others. Reserve may be the retreat of shyness, or, on the other hand, the contemptuous withdrawal of pride and haughtiness. Compare abash, pride, taciturn. Antonyms: abandon, confidence, haughtiness, pertness, arrogance, egotism, impudence, sauciness, assumption, forwardness, indiscretion, self-conceit, assurance, frankness, loquaciousness, self-sufficiency, boldness, freedom, loquacity, sociability. Conceit. Start of a new word. Money. Synonyms: bills, cash, funds, property, bullion, coin, gold, silver, capital, currency, notes, specie. Money is the authorized medium of exchange. Coined money is called coin or specie. What are termed in England banknotes are in the United States commonly called bills, as a $5 bill. The notes of responsible men are readily transferable in commercial circles, but they are not money, as the stock was sold for $500 in money and the balance in merchantable paper. Cash is specie or money in hand, or paid in hand, as the cash account, the cash price. In the legal sense, property is not money, and money is not property, for property is that which has inherent value, while money, as such, has but representative value, and may or may not have intrinsic value. Bullion is either gold or silver uncoined, or the coined metal considered without reference to its coinage, but simply as merchandise, when its value as bullion may be very different from its value as money. The word capital is used chiefly of accumulated property or money invested in productive enterprises or available for such investment. Start of a new word. Morose. Synonyms: acrimonious, dogged, ill-natured, splenetic, churlish, gloomy, severe, sulky, crabbed, gruff, snappish, sullen, crusty, ill-humored, sour, surly. The sullen and sulky are discontented and resentful in regard to that against which they are too proud to protest, or consider all protest vain. Sullen denotes more of pride, sulky more of resentful obstinacy. The morose are bitterly dissatisfied with the world in general, and disposed to vent their ill nature upon others. The sullen and sulky are for the most part silent, the morose growl out bitter speeches. A surly person is in a state of latent anger, resenting approaches intrusion, and ready to take offense at anything. Thus we speak of a surly dog. Sullen and sulky moods may be transitory. One who is morose or surly is commonly so by disposition or habit. Antonyms: amiable, complaisant, gentle, kind, pleasant, benignant, friendly, good-natured, loving, sympathetic, bland, genial, indulgent, mild, tender. Start of a new word. Motion. Synonyms: act, change, movement, process, transition. Action, move, passage, transit. Motion is change of place or position in space. Transition is a passing from one point or position in space to another. Motion may be either abstract or concrete, more frequently the former. Movement is always concrete, that is, considered in connection with the thing that moves or is moved. Thus, we speak of the movements of the planets, but of the laws of planetary motion, of military movements, but of perpetual motion. Move is used chiefly of contests or competition, as in chess or politics, as, it is your move, a shrewd move of the opposition. Action is a more comprehensive word than motion. We now rarely speak of mental or spiritual motions, but rather of mental or spiritual acts or processes, or of the laws of mental action, but a formal proposal of action in a deliberative assembly is termed a motion. Compare ACT. Antonyms: immobility, quiescence, quiet, repose, rest, stillness. Start of a new word. Mourn. Synonyms: bemoan, deplore, lament, regret, rue, sorrow. Bewail, grieve. To mourn is to feel or express sadness or distress because of some loss, affliction, or misfortune. Mourning is thought of as prolonged. Grief or regret may be transient. One may grieve or mourn, regret, rue, or sorrow without a sound. He bemoans with suppressed and often inarticulate sounds of grief. He bewails with passionate utterance, whether of inarticulate cries or of spoken words. He laments in plaintive or pathetic words, as the prophet Jeremiah in his Lamentations. One deplores with settled sorrow which may or may not find relief in words. One is made to rue an act by some misfortune resulting, or by some penalty or vengeance inflicted because of it. One regrets a slight misfortune or a hasty word. He sorrows over the death of a friend. Antonyms: be joyful, exult, joy, make merry, rejoice, triumph. Start of a new word. Mutual. Synonyms: common, correlative, interchangeable, joint, reciprocal. That is common to which two or more persons have the same or equal claims, or in which they have equal interest or participation, in the strictest sense. That is mutual, Latin mutere, to change, which is freely interchanged. That is reciprocal in respect to which one act or movement is met by a corresponding act or movement in return. We speak of our common country, mutual affection, reciprocal obligations, the reciprocal action of cause and effect, where the effect becomes in turn a cause. Many good writers hold it incorrect to say a mutual friend, and insist that a common friend would be more accurate, but common friend is practically never used, because of the disagreeable suggestion that attaches to common, of ordinary or inferior. Mutual friend has high literary authority, of Burke, Scott, Dickens, and others, and a considerable usage of good society in its favor, the expression being quite naturally derived from the thoroughly correct phrase mutual friendship. Antonyms: detached, distinct, separated, unconnected, unrequited, disconnected, disunited, severed, unreciprocated, unshared. Dissociated, separate, sundered. Start of a new word. Mysterious. Synonyms: abstruse, inexplicable, recondite, cabalistic, inscrutable, secret, dark, mystic, transcendental, enigmatical, mystical, unfathomable, hidden, obscure, unfathomed, incomprehensible, occult, unknown. That is mysterious in the true sense which is beyond human comprehension, as the decrees of God or the origin of life. That is mystic or mystical which has associated with it some hidden or recondite meaning, especially of a religious kind, as the mystic Babylon of the Apocalypse. That is dark which we cannot personally see through, especially if sadly perplexing, as a dark providence. That is secret which is intentionally hidden. Compare dark. Antonyms: see synonyms for clear. Start of a new word. Name. Synonyms: agnomen, denomination, prenomen, surname, appellation, designation, style, title. Cognomen, epithet, name in the most general sense, signifying the word by which a person or thing is called or known, includes all other words of this group. In this sense, every noun is a name. In the more limited sense, a name is personal, an appellation is descriptive, a title is official. In the phrase William the Conqueror, King of England, William is the man's name, which belongs to him personally, independently of any rank or achievement. Conqueror is the appellation which he won by his acquisition of England. King is the title denoting his royal rank. An epithet, epitheton, something added, from epi, on, and tithemi, put, is something placed upon a person or thing. The epithet does not strictly belong to an object like a name, but is given to mark some assumed characteristic, good or bad. An epithet is always an adjective, or a word or phrase used as an adjective, and is properly used to emphasize a characteristic but not to add information. As in the phrase, the sounding sea, the idea that an epithet is always opprobrious, and that any word used opprobriously is an epithet is a popular error. Designation may be used much in the sense of appellation, but is more distinctive or specific in meaning. A designation properly so called rests upon some inherent quality, while an appellation may be fanciful. Among the Romans, the prenomen was the individual part of a man's name, the nomen designated the gens to which he belonged. The cognomen showed his family and was borne by all patricians, and the agnomen was added to refer to his achievements or character. When scientists name an animal or a plant, they give it a binary or binomial technical name comprising a generic and a specific appellation. In modern use, a personal name, as John or Mary, is given in infancy, and is often called the given name or Christian name, or simply the first name, rarely the prenomen. The cognomen or surname is the family name which belongs to one by right of birth or marriage. Style is the legal designation by which a person or house is known in official or business relations, as, the name and style of Baring Brothers. The term denomination is applied to a separate religious organization, without the opprobrious meaning attaching to the word sect, also, to designate any class of like objects collectively, especially money or notes of a certain value, as, the sum was in notes of the denomination of $1,000. Compare term. Start of a new word. Native. Synonyms: indigenous, innate, natal, natural, original. Native denotes that which belongs to one by birth, natal that which pertains to the event of birth, natural denotes that which rests upon inherent qualities of character or being. We speak of one's native country, or of his natal day, of natural ability, native genius. Compare inherent, primeval, radical. Antonyms: acquired, alien, artificial, assumed, foreign, unnatural. Start of a new word. Nautical. Synonyms: marine, maritime, naval, ocean, oceanic. Marine, el mar, sea, signifies belonging to the ocean. Maritime, a secondary derivative from the same root, bordering on or connected with the ocean, as, marine products, marine animals, maritime nations, maritime laws. Nautical, nauts, a sailor, denotes primarily anything connected with sailors, and hence with ships or navigation. Naval, el navis, nos, a ship, refers to the armed force of a nation on the sea, and, by extension, to similar forces on lakes and rivers, as, a naval force, a nautical almanac. Ocean, used adjectively, is applied to that which belongs to or is part of the ocean. Oceanic may be used in the same sense, but is especially applied to that which borders on, or upon, or is connected with, or which is similar to or suggestive of an ocean. We speak of ocean currents, oceanic islands, or, perhaps, of an oceanic intellect. Start of a new word. Neat. Synonyms: clean, dapper, nice, prim, tidy, cleanly, natty, orderly, spruce, trim. That which is clean is simply free from soil or defilement of any kind. Things are orderly when in due relation to other things. A room or desk is orderly when every article is in place. A person is orderly who habitually keeps things so. Tidy denotes that which conforms to propriety in general. An unlaced shoe may be perfectly clean, but is not tidy. Neat refers to that which is clean and tidy with nothing superfluous, conspicuous, or showy, as when we speak of plain but neat attire. The same idea of freedom from the superfluous appears in the phrases a neat speech, a neat turn, a neat reply, etc. A clean cut has no ragged edges, a neat stroke just does what is intended. Nice is stronger than neat, implying value and beauty. A cheap, coarse dress may be perfectly neat, but would not be termed nice. Spruce is applied to the show and affectation of neatness with a touch of smartness, and is always a term of mild contempt, as a spruce-serving man. Trim denotes a certain shapely and elegant firmness, often with suppleness and grace, as a trim suit, a trim figure. Prim applies to a precise, formal, affected nicety. Dapper is spruce with the suggestion of smallness and slightness. Natty, a diminutive of neat, suggests minute elegance, with a tendency toward the exquisite, as a dapper little fellow in a natty business suit. Antonyms: dirty, negligent, slouchy, uncared for, disorderly, rough, slovenly, unkempt, dowdy, rude, soiled, untidy. Start of a new word. Necessary. Synonyms: essential, infallible, required, unavoidable, indispensable, needed, requisite, undeniable. Inevitable, needful, that is necessary which must exist, occur, or be true, which in the nature of things cannot be otherwise. That which is essential belongs to the essence of a thing, so that the thing cannot exist in its completeness without it. That which is indispensable may be only an adjunct, but it is one that cannot be spared. Vigorous health is essential to an Arctic explorer. Warm clothing is indispensable. That which is requisite, or required, is so in the judgment of the person requiring it, but may not be so absolutely. Thus, the requisite is more a matter of personal feeling than the indispensable. Inevitable, not, and evito, shun, is primarily the exact equivalent of the Saxon unavoidable. Both words are applied to things which some at least would escape or prevent, while that which is necessary may meet with no objection. Food is necessary, death is inevitable. A necessary conclusion satisfies a thinker, an inevitable conclusion silences opposition. An infallible proof is one that necessarily leads the mind to a sound conclusion. Needed and needful are more concrete than necessary, and respect an end to be attained. We speak of a necessary inference. Necessary food is what one cannot live without, while needful food is that without which he cannot enjoy comfort, health, and strength. Antonyms: casual, needless, optional, useless, contingent, non-essential, unnecessary, worthless. Prepositions: necessary to a sequence or a total, forward to a result or a person. Unity is necessary to constitute, completeness. Decision is necessary for command, or for a commander. Start of a new word. Necessity. Synonyms: compulsion, fatality, requisite, destiny, fate, sine qua non, emergency, indispensability, unavoidableness, essential, indispensableness, urgency, exigency, need, want. Extremity, requirement. Necessity is the quality of being necessary, or the quality of that which cannot but be, become, or be true, or be accepted as true. Need and want always imply a lack. Necessity may be used in this sense, but in the higher philosophical sense necessity simply denotes the exclusion of any alternative either in thought or fact. Righteousness is a necessity, not a need, of the divine nature. Need suggests the possibility of supplying the deficiency which want expresses. To speak of a person's want of decision merely points out a weakness in his character. To say that he has need of decision implies that he can exercise or attain it. As applied to a deficiency, necessity is more imperative than need. A weary person is in need of rest. When rest becomes a necessity, he has no choice but to stop work. An essential is something, as a quality, or element, that belongs to the essence of something else so as to be inseparable from it in its normal condition, or in any complete idea or statement of it. Compare necessary, predestination. Antonyms: choice, doubt, dubiousness, freedom, possibility, contingency, doubtfulness, fortuity, option, uncertainty. Prepositions: the necessity of surrender, a necessity for action, this is a necessity to me. Start of a new word. Neglect. Synonyms: carelessness, heedlessness, negligence, scorn, default, inadvertence, omission, slackness, disregard, inattention, oversight, slight, disrespect, indifference, remissness, thoughtlessness. Failure, neglectfulness, neglect, lnec, not, and lego, gather, is the failing to take such care, show such attention, pay such courtesy, etc., as may be rightfully or reasonably expected. Negligence, which is the same in origin, may be used in almost the same sense, but with a slighter force, as when Whittier speaks of the negligence which friendship loves. But negligence is often used to denote the quality or trait of character of which the act is a manifestation, or to denote the habit of neglecting that which ought to be done. Neglect is transitive, negligence is intransitive. We speak of neglect of his books, friends, or duties, in which cases we could not use negligence. Negligence in dress implies want of care as to its arrangement, tidiness, etc. Neglect of one's garments would imply leaving them exposed to defacement or injury, as by dust, moths, etc. Neglect has a passive sense which negligence has not. The child was suffering from neglect, i.e., from being neglected by others. The child was suffering from negligence would imply that he himself was neglectful. The distinction sometimes made that neglect denotes the act, and negligence the habit, is but partially true. One may be guilty of habitual neglect of duty, the wife may suffer from her husband's constant neglect, while the negligence which causes a railroad accident may be that of a moment, and on the part of one ordinarily careful and attentive. In such cases the law provides punishment for criminal negligence. Antonyms: see synonyms for care. Prepositions: neglect of duty, of the child by the parent, there was neglect on the part of the teacher. Start of a new word. New. Synonyms: fresh, modern, new-made, upstart, juvenile, newfangled, novel, young, late, new-fashioned, recent, youthful. That which is new has lately come into existence, possession, or use. A new house is just built, or in a more general sense is one that has just come into the possession of the present owner or occupant. Modern denotes that which has begun to exist in the present age, and is still existing. Recent denotes that which has come into existence within a comparatively brief period, and may or may not be existing still. Modern history pertains to any period since the Middle Ages. Modern literature, modern architecture, etc., are not strikingly remote from the styles and types prevalent today. That which is late is somewhat removed from the present, but not far enough to be called old. That which is recent is not quite so sharply distinguished from the past as that which is new. Recent publications range over a longer time than new books. That which is novel is either absolutely or relatively unprecedented in kind. A novel contrivance is one that has never before been known. A novel experience is one that has never before occurred to the same person. That which is new may be of a familiar or even of an ancient sort, as a new copy of an old book. Young and youthful are applied to that which has life. That which is young is possessed of a comparatively new existence as a living thing, possessing actual youth. That which is youthful manifests the attributes of youth. Compare youthful. Fresh applies to that which has the characteristics of newness or youth, while capable of deterioration by lapse of time. That which is unworn, unspoiled, or unfaded, as a fresh countenance, fresh eggs, fresh flowers. New as opposed to old, modern to ancient, recent to remote, young to old, aged, etc. Antonyms: see synonyms for old. Start of a new word. Nimble. Synonyms: active, alert, bustling, prompt, speedy, spry, agile, brisk, lively, quick, sprightly, swift. Nimble refers to lightness, freedom, and quickness of motion within a somewhat narrow range, with readiness to turn suddenly to any point. Swift applies commonly to more sustained motion over greater distances. A pickpocket is nimble-fingered, a dancer nimble-footed, an arrow, a racehorse, or an ocean steamer is swift, Shakespeare's nimble lightnings is said of the visual appearance in sudden zigzag flash across the sky. Figuratively, we speak of nimble wit, swift intelligence, swift destruction. Alert, which is strictly a synonym for ready, comes sometimes near the meaning of nimble or quick, from the fact that the ready, wide-awake person is likely to be lively, quick, speedy. Compare active, alert. Antonyms: clumsy, dull, heavy, inactive, inert, slow, sluggish, unready. Dilatory. Start of a new word. Normal. Synonyms: common, natural, ordinary, regular, typical, usual. That which is natural is according to nature. That which is normal is according to the standard or rule which is observed or claimed to prevail in nature. A deformity may be natural, symmetry is normal. The normal color of the crow is black, while the normal color of the sparrow is gray, but one is as natural as the other. Typical refers to such an assemblage of qualities as makes the specimen, genus, etc., a type of some more comprehensive group, while normal is more commonly applied to the parts of a single object. The specimen was typical, color, size, and other characteristics, normal. The regular is etymologically that which is according to rule, hence that which is steady and constant, as opposed to that which is fitful and changeable. The normal action of the heart is regular. That which is common is shared by a great number of persons or things. Disease is common, a normal state of health is rare. Compare general, usual. Antonyms: abnormal, irregular, peculiar, singular, unprecedented, exceptional, monstrous, rare, uncommon, unusual. Start of a new word. Notwithstanding, conjunction synonyms: although, howbeit, nevertheless, though, but, however, still, yet. However simply waives discussion, and, like the archaic howbeit, says be that as it may, this is true, nevertheless concedes the truth of what precedes, but claims that what follows is none the less true. Notwithstanding marshals the two statements face to face, admits the one and its seeming contradiction to the other, while insisting that it cannot, after all, withstand the other, as, notwithstanding the force of the enemy is superior, we shall conquer. Yet and still are weaker than notwithstanding, while stronger than but. Though and although make as little as possible of the concession, dropping it, as it were, incidentally, as, though we are guilty, thou art good. To say we are guilty, but thou art good, would make the concession of guilt more emphatic. Compare but, yet. Start of a new word. Notwithstanding, prep. Synonyms: despite, in spite of. Notwithstanding simply states that circumstances shall not be or have not been allowed to withstand. Despite and in spite of refer primarily to personal and perhaps spiteful opposition, as, he failed notwithstanding his good intentions, or, he persevered in spite of the most bitter hostility. When despite and in spite of are applied to inanimate things, it is with something of personification. In spite of the storm is said as if the storm had a hostile purpose to oppose the undertaking. Start of a new word. Oath. Synonyms: adjuration, curse, profane swearing, affidavit, cursing, profanity, anathema, denunciation, reprobation, ban, execration, swearing, blaspheming, imprecation, sworn statement. Blasphemy, malediction, vow. In the highest sense, as in a court of justice, an oath is a reverent appeal to God in corroboration of what one says. Abbott Law Dictionary. An affidavit is a sworn statement made in writing in the presence of a competent officer. An adjuration is a solemn appeal to a person in the name of God to speak the truth. An oath is made to man in the name of God, a vow, to God without the intervention, often without the knowledge, of man. In the lower sense, an oath may be mere blasphemy or profane swearing. Anathema, curse, execration, and imprecation are modes of invoking vengeance or retribution from a superhuman power upon the person against whom they are uttered. Anathema is a solemn ecclesiastical condemnation of a person or of a proposition. Curse may be just and authoritative, as, the curse of God, or, it may be wanton and powerless, so the curse causeless shall not come, Prov 26, 2, Execration expresses most of personal bitterness and hatred. Imprecation refers especially to the coming of the desired evil upon the person against whom it is uttered. Malediction is a general wish of evil, a less usual but very expressive word. Compare testimony. Antonyms: benediction, benison, blessing. Start of a new word. Obscure. Synonyms: abstruse, darksome, dusky, involved, ambiguous, deep, enigmatical, muddy, cloudy, dense, hidden, mysterious, complex, difficult, incomprehensible, profound, complicated, dim, indistinct, turbid, dark, doubtful, intricate, unintelligible. That is obscure which the eye or the mind cannot clearly discern or see through, whether because of its own want of transparency, its depth or intricacy, or because of mere defect of light. That which is complicated is likely to be obscure, but that may be obscure which is not at all complicated and scarcely complex, as a muddy pool. In that which is abstruse, abs, from, and trudo, push, as if removed from the usual course of thought or out of the way of apprehension or discovery, the thought is remote, hidden. In that which is obscure there may be nothing to hide, it is hard to see to the bottom of the profound, because of its depth, but the most shallow turbidness is obscure. Compare complex, dark, difficult, mysterious. Antonyms: see synonyms for clear. Start of a new word. Obsolete. Synonyms: ancient, archaic, obsolescent, out of date, antiquated, disused, old, rare. Some of the oldest or most ancient words are not obsolete, as father, mother, etc. A word is obsolete which has quite gone out of reputable use. A word is archaic which is falling out of reputable use, or, on the other hand, having been obsolete, is taken up tentatively by writers or speakers of influence, so that it may perhaps regain its position as a living word. A word is rare if there are few present instances of its reputable use. Compare old. Antonyms: see synonyms for new. Start of a new word. Obstinate. Synonyms: contumacious, headstrong, mulish, resolute, decided, heady, obdurate, resolved, determined, immovable, opinionated, stubborn, dogged, indomitable, persistent, unconquerable, firm, inflexible, pertinacious, unflinching, fixed, intractable, refractory, unyielding. The headstrong person is not to be stopped in his own course of action, while the obstinate and stubborn is not to be driven to another's way. The headstrong act, the obstinate and stubborn may simply refuse to stir. The most amiable person may be obstinate on some one point, the stubborn person is for the most part habitually so. We speak of obstinate determination, stubborn resistance. Stubborn is the term most frequently applied to the lower animals and inanimate things. Refractory implies more activity of resistance. The stubborn horse balks, the refractory animal plunges, rears, and kicks. Metals that resist ordinary processes of reduction are termed refractory. One is obdurate who adheres to his purpose in spite of appeals that would move any tender-hearted or right-minded person. Contumacious refers to a proud and insolent defiance of authority, as of the summons of a court. Pertinacious demand is contrasted with obstinate refusal. The unyielding conduct which we approve we call decided, firm, inflexible, resolute. That which we condemn we are apt to term headstrong, obstinate, stubborn. Compare perverse. Antonyms: amenable, dutiful, pliable, tractable, complaisant, gentle, pliant, undecided, compliant, irresolute, submissive, wavering, docile, obedient, teachable, yielding. Start of a new word. Obstruct. Synonyms: arrest, check, embarrass, interrupt, stay, bar, choke, hinder, oppose, stop. Barricade, clog, impede, retard. To obstruct is literally to build up against. The road is obstructed by fallen trees. The passage of liquid through a tube is obstructed by solid deposits. We may hinder one's advance by following and clinging to him. We obstruct his course by standing in his way or putting a barrier across his path. Anything that makes one's progress slower, whether from within or from without, impedes. An obstruction is always from without. To arrest is to cause to stop suddenly. Obstructing the way may have the effect of arresting progress. Compare. Hinder, impediment. Antonyms: accelerate, aid, facilitate, free, open, promote. Advance, clear, forward, further, pave the way for. Start of a new word. Old. Synonyms: aged, decrepit, immemorial, senile, ancient, elderly, olden, time-honored, antiquated, gray, patriarchal, time-worn, antique, hoary, remote, venerable. That is termed old which has existed long, or which existed long ago. Ancient, from the Latin, through the French, is the more stately, old, from the Saxon, the more familiar word. Familiarity, on one side, is near to contempt, thus we say, an old coat, an old hat. On the other hand, familiarity is akin to tenderness, and thus old is a word of endearment, as, the old homestead, the old oaken bucket. Tell me the old, old story, has been sung feelingly by millions. Tell me that ancient story would remove it out of all touch of human sympathy. Olden is a statelier form of old, and is applied almost exclusively to time, not to places, buildings, persons, etc. As regards periods of time, the familiar are also the near. Thus, the old times are not too far away for familiar thought and reference. The olden times are more remote, ancient times still further removed. Gray, hoary, and moldering refer to outward and visible tokens of age. Aged applies chiefly to long extended human life. Decrepit, gray, and hoary refer to the effects of age on the body exclusively, senile upon the mind also, as, a decrepit frame, senile garrulousness. One may be aged and neither decrepit nor senile. Elderly is applied to those who have passed middle life, but scarcely reached old age. Remote, back or away, and movio, move, primarily refers to space, but is extended to that which is far off in time, as, at some remote period. Venerable expresses the involuntary reverence that we yield to the majestic and long-enduring, whether in the material world or in human life and character. Compare antique, obsolete, primeval. Antonyms: compare synonyms for new, youthful. Start of a new word. Operation. Synonyms: action, effect, force, performance, result. Agency, execution, influence, procedure. Operation is action considered with reference to the thing acted upon, and may apply to the action of an intelligent agent or of a material substance or force, as, the operation of a medicine. Performance and execution denote intelligent action, considered with reference to the actor or to that which he accomplishes, performance accomplishing the will of the actor, execution often the will of another. We speak of the performance of a duty, the execution of a sentence. Compare ACT. Antonyms: failure, ineffectiveness, inutility, powerlessness, uselessness. Inaction, inefficiency. Start of a new word. Order. Synonyms: command, injunction, mandate, requirement. Direction, instruction, prohibition. Instruction implies superiority of knowledge, direction of authority on the part of the giver. A teacher gives instructions to his pupils, an employer gives directions to his workmen. Order is still more authoritative than direction. Soldiers, sailors, and railroad employees have simply to obey the orders of their superiors, without explanation or question. An order in the commercial sense has the authority of the money which the one ordering the goods pays or is to pay. Command is a loftier word, as well as highly authoritative, less frequent in common life. We speak of the commands of God, or sometimes, by polite hyperbole, ask of a friend, "Have you any commands for me?" A requirement is imperative, but not always formal, nor made by a personal agent. It may be in the nature of things, as, the requirements of the position. Prohibition is wholly negative, it is a command not to do. Injunction is now oftenest so used, especially as the requirement by legal authority that certain action be suspended or refrained from, pending final legal decision. Compare array, class, law, prohibit, system. Antonyms: allowance, consent, leave, liberty, license, permission, permit. Start of a new word. Ostentation. Synonyms: boast, flourish, parade, pompousness, vaunt, boasting, pageant, pomp, show, vaunting. Display, pageantry, pomposity. Ostentation is an ambitious showing forth of whatever is thought adapted to win admiration or praise. Ostentation may be without words, as, the ostentation of wealth in fine residences, rich clothing, costly equipage, or the like. When in words, ostentation is rather in manner than in direct statement, as, the ostentation of learning. Boasting is in direct statement, and is louder and more vulgar than ostentation. There may be great display or show with little substance. Ostentation suggests something substantial to be shown. Pageant, pageantry, parade, and pomp refer principally to affairs of arms or state, as a royal pageant, a military parade. Pomp is some material demonstration of wealth and power, as in grand and stately ceremonial, rich furnishings, processions, etc., considered as worthy of the person or occasion in whose behalf it is manifested. Pomp is the noble side of that which is ostentation is considered as arrogant and vain. Pageant and pageantry are inferior to pomp, denoting spectacular display designed to impress the public mind, and since the multitude is largely ignorant and thoughtless, the words pageant and pageantry have a suggestion of the transient and unsubstantial. Parade, el paro, prepare, is an exhibition as of troops in camp going through the evolutions that are to be used in battle, and suggests a lack of earnestness and direct or immediate occasion or demand. Hence, in the more general sense, a parade is an uncalled-for exhibition, and so used is a more disparaging word than ostentation. Ostentation may spring merely from undue self-gratulation. Parade implies a desire to impress others with a sense of one's abilities or resources, and is always offensive and somewhat contemptible, as a parade of wealth or learning. Pomposity and pompousness are the affectation of pomp. Antonyms: diffidence, quietness, retirement, timidity, modesty, reserve, shrinking, unobtrusiveness. Start of a new word. Ought. Synonym: should. One ought to do that which he is under moral obligation or in duty bound to do. Ought is the stronger word, holding most closely to the sense of moral obligation, or sometimes of imperative logical necessity. Should may have the sense of moral obligation or may apply merely to propriety or expediency, as in the proverb, the liar should have a good memory, i.e., he will need it. Ought is sometimes used of abstractions or inanimate things as indicating what the mind deems to be imperative or logically necessary in view of all the conditions, as, these goods ought to go into that space, these arguments ought to convince him. Should in such connections would be correct, but less emphatic. Compare duty. Start of a new word. Oversight. Synonyms: care, control, management, surveillance, charge, direction, superintendence, watch, command, inspection, supervision, watchfulness. A person may look over a matter in order to survey it carefully in its entirety, or he may look over it with no attention to the thing itself because his gaze and thought are concentrated on something beyond. Oversight has thus two contrasted senses, in the latter sense denoting inadvertent error or omission, and in the former denoting watchful supervision, commonly implying constant personal presence. Superintendence requires only so much of presence or communication as to know that the superintendent's wishes are carried out. The superintendent of a railroad will personally oversee very few of its operations. The railroad company has supreme direction of all its affairs without superintendence or oversight. Control is used chiefly with reference to restraint or the power of restraint. A good horseman has a restless horse under perfect control. There is no high character without self-control. Surveillance is an invidious term signifying watching with something of suspicion. Compare care, neglect. Start of a new word. Pain. Synonyms: ache, distress, suffering, torture, agony, pang, throe, twinge, anguish, paroxysm, torment, Pain is the most general term of this group, including all the others. Pain is a disturbing sensation from which nature revolts, resulting from some injurious external interference, as from a wound, a bruise, a harsh word, etc., or from some lack of what one needs, craves, or cherishes, as the pain of hunger or bereavement, or from some abnormal action of bodily or mental functions, as the pains of disease, envy, or discontent. Suffering is one of the severer forms of pain. The prick of a needle causes pain, but we should scarcely speak of it as suffering. Distress is too strong a word for little hurts, too feeble for the intensest suffering, but commonly applied to some continuous or prolonged trouble or need, as the distress of a shipwrecked crew, or of a destitute family. Ache is lingering pain, more or less severe, pang, a pain short, sharp, intense, and perhaps repeated. We speak of the pangs of hunger or of remorse. Throe is a violent and thrilling pain. Paroxysm applies to an alternately recurring and receding pain, which comes as it were in waves. The paroxysm is the rising of the wave. Torment and torture are intense and terrible sufferings. Agony and anguish express the utmost pain or suffering of body or mind. Agony of body is that with which the system struggles, anguish that by which it is crushed. Antonyms: comfort, delight, ease, enjoyment, peace, rapture, relief, solace. Start of a new word. Palliate. Synonyms: apologize for, conceal, extenuate, hide, screen, cloak, cover, gloss over, mitigate, veil. Cloak, from the French, and palliate, from the Latin, are the same in original signification, but have diverged in meaning. A cloak may be used to hide completely the person or some object carried about the person, or it may but partly veil the figure, making the outlines less distinct. Cloak is used in the former, palliate, in the latter sense. To cloak a sin is to attempt to hide it from discovery. To palliate it is to attempt to hide some part of its blameworthiness. When we palliate our own or others' faults, we do not seek to cloak them altogether, but only to extenuate the guilt of them in part. Trench Study of Words Lecture 6, page 266. Either to palliate or to extenuate is to admit the fault, but to extenuate is rather to apologize for the offender, while to palliate is to disguise the fault. Hence, we speak of extenuating but not of palliating circumstances, since circumstances cannot change the inherent wrong of an act, though they may lessen the blameworthiness of him who does it. Palliating a bad thing by giving it a mild name does not make it less evil. In reference to diseases, to palliate is really to diminish their violence, or partly to relieve the sufferer. Compare alleviate, hide. Start of a new word. Pardon, v. Synonyms: absolve, condone, forgive, pass by, remit. Acquit, excuse, overlook, pass over. To pardon is to let pass, as a fault or sin, without resentment, blame, or punishment. Forgive has reference to feelings, pardon to consequences. Hence, the executive may pardon, but has nothing to do officially with forgiving. Personal injury may be forgiven by the person wronged. Thus, God at once forgives and pardons. The pardoned sinner is exempt from punishment. The forgiven sinner is restored to the divine favor. To pardon is the act of a superior, implying the right to punish. To forgive is the privilege of the humblest person who has been wronged or offended. In law, to remit the whole penalty is equivalent to pardoning the offender, but a part of a penalty may be remitted and the remainder inflicted, as where the penalty includes both fine and imprisonment. To condone is to put aside a recognized offense by some act which restores the offender to forfeited right or privilege, and is the act of a private individual, without legal formalities. To excuse is to overlook some slight offense, error, or breach of etiquette. Pardon is often used by courtesy in nearly the same sense. A person may speak of excusing or forgiving himself, but not of pardoning himself. Compare absolve, pardon, and antonyms: castigate, chastise, convict, doom, recompense, sentence, chasten, condemn, correct, punish, scourge, visit. Start of a new word. Pardon, and synonyms: absolution, amnesty, forgiveness, oblivion, acquittal, forbearance, mercy, remission. Acquittal is a release from a charge, after trial, as not guilty. Pardon is a removal of penalty from one who has been adjudged guilty. Acquittal is by the decision of a court, commonly of a jury. Pardon is the act of the executive. An innocent man may demand acquittal, and need not plead for pardon. Pardon supposes an offense, yet, as our laws stand, to grant a pardon is sometimes the only way to release one who has been wrongly convicted. Oblivion, from the Latin, signifies overlooking and virtually forgetting an offense, so that the offender stands before the law in all respects as if it had never been committed. Amnesty brings the same idea through the Greek. Pardon affects individuals. Amnesty and oblivion are said of great numbers. Pardon is oftenest applied to the ordinary administration of law, amnesty, to national and military affairs. An amnesty is issued after war, insurrection, or rebellion. It is often granted by an act of oblivion, and includes a full pardon of all offenders who come within its provisions. Absolution is a religious word. Compare synonyms for absolve. Remission is a discharge from penalty, as, the remission of a fine. Antonyms: penalty, punishment, retaliation, retribution, vengeance. Prepositions: a pardon to or for the offenders, for all offenses, the pardon of offenders or offenses. Start of a new word. Part, B. Synonyms. Compare synonyms for part, and prepositions: part into shares, part in the middle, part one from another, part among the claimants, part between contestants. Archaic: in general, to part from is to relinquish companionship, to part with is to relinquish possession. We part from a person or from something thought of with some sense of companionship. A traveler parts from his friends. He may be said also to part from his native shore. A man parts with an estate, a horse, a copyright. Part with may be applied to a person thought of in any sense as a possession. An employer parts with a clerk or servant, but part with is sometimes used by good writers as meaning simply to separate from. Start of a new word. Part, and synonyms: atom, fraction, member, section, component, fragment, particle, segment, constituent, ingredient, piece, share, division, installment, portion, subdivision. Element, part, a substance, quantity, or amount that is the result of the division of something greater, is the general word, including all the others of this group. A fragment is the result of breaking, rending, or disruption of some kind, while a piece may be smoothly or evenly separated and have a certain completeness in itself. A piece is often taken for a sample, a fragment scarcely would be. Division and fraction are always regarded as in connection with the total. Divisions may be equal or unequal. A fraction is one of several equal parts into which the whole is supposed to be divided. A portion is a part viewed with reference to someone who is to receive it or some special purpose to which it is to be applied. In a restaurant, one portion, i.e., the amount designed for one person, is sometimes, by special order, served to two. A share is a part to which one has or may acquire a right in connection with others. An installment is one of a series of proportionate payments that are to be continued till the entire claim is discharged. A particle is an exceedingly small part. A component, constituent, ingredient, or element is a part of some compound or mixture. An element is necessary to the existence, as a component or constituent is necessary to the completeness of that which it helps to compose. An ingredient may be foreign or accidental. A subdivision is a division of a division. We speak of a segment of a circle. Compare particle, portion. Start of a new word.